In fact, that's likely.
Yeah.
By the,
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
you know, they have a fire academy over there.
What do you know?
Nothing. Been so busy lately, I haven't been able to. Nah, coming up Thursday, I believe.
Where you going?
Out to visit my dad for his 90th birthday. To Indiana, Elkhart.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know.
Hi.
Okay. Call to order, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Like a moment of silence, in being thankful that we have the volunteer fire department people that we have, the amazing job that our department did and other departments in the area did in Exeter with the blaze. So I just want people to pause and feel thankful for these volunteers. Thank you. So,
motion to open public hearing, outdoor entertainment license application. Warwick Civic Orchestra, DBA Warwick Symphony Orchestra, dates June 10th to 2023. With a rain date of June 11th, 2023, location Washington County Fairgrounds, 78 Richmond Townhouse Road.
Second.
okay, any discussion? Hi,
Hi, I'm just here to represent the orchestra.
okay, could you state your name and where
My
you
name's
live?
Catherine Gagnon. I'm a resident of Richmond.
Oh, okay. So, tell us about the orchestra and
So this is the second annual performance that we will be presenting at the county fairgrounds. It is a free event, pops event. Our orchestra's been around since 1956.
oh, wow,
But we perform all around the state. This is only our second year at this venue. And we will be collecting donations on site to benefit Hasbro Children's Hospital.
oh, nice. How many people are in the ensemble?
55.
Oh, wow. I play trumpet, so
Nice.
I enjoy that kind of stuff. Looking forward to it myself.
So in other words, if your trumpeter doesn't show up, call Mark.
We have 5, so we might be covered. Thank you.
So it's pretty straightforward, I guess.
Playing a whole concert, or are you playing a single piece?
We will be presenting 45 to 60 minutes of music ourselves, and we have some guests joining us. They're the children that form the ensembles of the Westminster Strings program. They're going to be coming as our opening act, and then we'll be moving into our full program. So in all, it'll be 60 to 75 minutes.
Oh,
Oh, nice. You gonna be any food trucks or anything like that there too?
That wasn't the plan. We've encouraged people to bring their own chairs and bring their own picnics,
Cool. Nice.
but
and it's free.
it is free.
Wow. Excellent,
Thank
thank you.
Move to close public hearing.
I think you have to ask if any members of the public.
Yes. Does anyone have anything to say out in Cyberland or in the public?
Hearing none, motion to close public hearing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve outdoor entertainment license for the Warwick Civic Orchestra, DBA Warwick Symphony.
Second.
So we'll vote.
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Move to open public hearing on the outdoor entertainment license for the Richmond Smoke LLC DBA Republican Smoking Bar, live music. Dates are May to October 2023 is the duration, and the location is Richmond Smoke of 1219 Main Street, Richmond.
Okay. Excellent. So we begin our discussion. Is there a representative from the smoke shop?
We
here?
need to finish the motion because I seconded it.
Oh.
We gotta vote. to
Oh,
vote.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, so,
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
aye, right now. Anyone from the smoke shop to discuss this?
I think it's a removal.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Will be in Cyberland.
My only,
Close public hearing.
I just wanted to comment that I listen to the music from my house when I'm outside. It carries that far. All right, so we had a motion to
Close, seconded.
all right.
Aye.
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 All right,
I just point out one thing is I noticed the applicant didn't request the normal waivers, so as long as the police chief is okay with no police presence. I think that they would probably want that waiver.
We're fine with that. If there is a need for police response, we will be there.
okay, excellent. Okay, so we
Motion to approve.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
all right,
Motion to open public hearing for the proposed municipal budget for the year 2024.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and we begin our discussion.
Before we do, Mark, I just kind of wanted to outline what the process has been and what it'll be.
Okay,
That's
great.
The council pretty much knows, but
Yeah.
for the public as well. So what we do is we ask our departments to submit a budget. And the finance department reviews the wage and the personnel portion of the budget. Then it's sent to me and I review it, I kind of make sure it's within current, the economic climate and what I view the council's kind of proclivity to be as far as spending. If I need to, I'll send it back to the departments for review. And then it goes to our finance board, and we have a finance board that sits here and spends several nights reviewing the budget with Laura and I, asking pertinent questions, potentially having any community organizations or department heads in for questions. And then they send it back technically to me to forward to the town council, and becomes the town council's budget. The town council has since had 2 work sessions to discuss the budget, which was their time when they would normally make any changes they want to make, and now they're essentially presenting it to you, the public, for your input. At that point, they'll vote to potentially make any changes based on what you all have to say. And then it will go to, and this is the first of 2 of these public hearings. So there'll be one tonight, there'll be one at the May 2nd regular council meeting as well. And then it will go to referendum this year for the first time. This has never happened here before. We've always had a financial town meeting. But now we've altered the process based on your votes at with our charter review commission in the last election. So the process will be a little bit different this time. So it'll kind of be a learning experience for all of us.
Nice.
This is your opportunity to come up and make any recommendations you might have. I think Laura's going to give a quick overview first. Thanks.
All right.
I believe the council gave copies of what's behind you in the PowerPoint. So the first and second slide in this PowerPoint is just the Excel spreadsheet for expenses and revenues. So it is available. We will be putting it on our website after this, tomorrow sometime. Basically, that's the expense side, that's the revenue side. I'll give you a little more detail as to the overview. So basically, the budget is up 4.9% or about $1.4 million. The municipal side of the budget, the town,
services are up 5% or 370,000 for a total budget of $7.8 million. This school is up 4.85%, just slightly over $1 million for their total budget of $21.7 million. And that's Richmond's share. That's not the total Charahoe budget. State aid for education is up this year, $775,000. We've used some revenue from the American Rescue and from the COPS grant for one police officer and for the Human Services Director. That total amount coming into the general fund budget is $114,150. There's a transfer to capital projects just shy of $500,000. That's down from 725 in fiscal year 23. That's what's been recommended from department heads for this year, and it's to help maintain our infrastructure. Debt service is up 300,000 for the payment of anticipated road bonds. There was an approval of $2.5 million for road bonds, and this would be the debt service for the issuance of those bonds. What's always important to everyone is the current year tax revenue. The tax revenue was planned to go up to 28 with the town administrator's budget. The town council did review it in their work sessions, and there is no tax increase for this year proposed, and the offset has gone to fund balance, our unassigned fund balance. They offset the 228 with fund balance. The estimated tax rate right now is at $14.75. The unassigned fund balance was 16%. Using the 259, it'll bring it down to 15.04%, which is still in accordance with the fund balance policy. The major changes in the department budgets, most departments level funded their operating budget. No additional services. The personnel costs are up due to a 3% cost of living increase. Health insurance is up 1.6% and dental is up 8.9%. Dental is a much smaller number. So while it says 9%, the impact is not that much. There is a reorganization within the building planning zoning department. The town council already approved those employees, and that is now built into the new budget. And there is also some restructuring of town employees in DPW for the maintenance of the town buildings in the transfer station. As I mentioned already, the transfer for capital projects is down about $240,000. The addition of the road bond debt for $330,000. In the revenues is an offset of $75,000 coming from Hopkinton, as all of their residents now have the ability to use our transfer station, and that is Hopkinton has contributed that much to Richmond for those services. There's continuing funding of some of the capital projects and community services from the American Rescue, or as we call the ARPA money fund. So what are we planning to do with the capital projects? There is a full list here. It's the computer replacement program. There is a proposed new water billing software, continued funding for the police's fingerprint machinery, their vehicle replacement. In here, $75,000 to upgrade the police radios, fund an animal control vehicle. That's an ongoing reserve that we're trying to build. So when the animal control truck is gone, there's enough money in the budget. Same thing with public works. We fund a certain amount every year so that they have the ability to replace their vehicles. There's $70,000 in road maintenance here. Ecotourism is a new project. The Heritage Trail for $5,000. Those are both for $5,000. hazard mitigation plan to start putting money aside, as we will need that. There is 20,000 for design of the Wyoming Village. Beaver River Preservation's 12, the Land Trust Improvements is 15, Comp Plan Reserve, which we put away every year, is 3, and 25,000 is put away every year for the landfill. Current spending, like as I mentioned, American Rescue is for the COPS grant for the new officers, there's a match of 47.5. There's funding for the healthcare advocate for the police station, for the police department for 25, and funding for the human resources, human services department, including operating and her salary for 75. Estimated tax rate. So the council has changed to no increase in taxes. Just for information, every penny is $5 on a $500,000 house. So every time we increase the tax rate a penny, that would be the increase in your taxes. Town administrator budget did have an increase that would have been around $80 a household. Town council, no increase in the revenue. The estimated tax rate becomes $14.75, and it is currently $20.58. Again, every penny brings in tax revenue of about $13,500. The final rate actually is not known. All of the assessments and exemptions are still being evaluated. Just for everyone's information, the assessments with the reval went up an average of 39%. And the total tax revenue that could be allowed by the state is up 4%, or about $815,000. Basically, this is the worksheet that is used to come up with the tax rate. It's just the calculation for what I just explained, with the proposed tax rate going to 14.75 or 76, and that we had the ability to spend 815 to still be within the 4% levy that we're allowed. Use of fund balance. Almost to the bottom, right about Mark's head, is the unassigned fund balance at the end of 6/30/22. It was $4.7 million. Nothing was used in the current year's budget. The council has proposed using $259,000 of it to bring the unassigned fund balance to 4.5, which is with leaving the town with the 15% fund balance policy. And then the next steps, which Karen alluded to, is the second public hearing is on May 2nd, and the all-day referendum is June 5th, right here at the town hall from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that is the quick overview of the budget.
Lots of work. Okay, Louise.
Hi, Louise Dinsmore, Richmond. Miss Kenyon, I just have a quick question about I think it was the first slide where it said, the school was up 4.85%. I don't know if, Aaron could bring that slide back up, please. So I guess my question is, can you help me reconcile that number in understanding that from school perspective? I thought we were told that the increase in Richmond's share for the school budget was going to be about 1.74%. Now from this slide, we're seeing 4.85%.
This is their expenditure side. This is what we have to contribute to Charahoe on the expense side. We have an offset of state aid.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a net amount that the town gives, the revenue, the state aids and the revenue side, this is gross expense. So their gross budget went up 4.85% to Richmond,
Their gross budget to
to
Richmond.
us, yes.
So,
That's a lot.
yeah,
So keep that in mind when we're talking about economic development initiatives. Thank you.
Pam?
Good evening, Town Council. My name is Allison Croak. I'm the President and CEO at Wood River Health Services in Hope Valley in Western. I'm here tonight to speak to the proposed budget as recommended by the Finance Committee, which recommended $0 from the town of Richmond to Wood River Health Services. So for those of you that aren't familiar with our organization, we were founded in 1976 to serve the towns of Charlestown, Richmond, Hopkinton, Westerly, Exeter, West Greenwich, as well as 2 towns in Connecticut, Pawcatuck and North Stonington. Our mission as a nonprofit healthcare, federally qualified healthcare center is to provide care, high quality healthcare, affordable healthcare, regardless of someone's ability to pay. We accept all insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. For many people, we are the only healthcare provider that takes their insurance in this area. We also accept people that don't have any insurance. We offer a sliding scale program. We served in 2022, 8,614 patients, representing almost 24,000 primary care visits, again, making us the largest primary care provider in this region of the state. As a organization with frontline healthcare workers, we were obviously open during the entire COVID-19 pandemic, giving out thousands of free, often PCR tests, as well as COVID vaccines. Many of that to the residents of the town of Richmond. You can imagine my surprise when I saw the Finance Committee recommended $0 for the first time ever going to our nonprofit health center. Of the patients that we served in 2022, 995 of those patients leaving out the zip code of 02832, which does have Richmond in it, but it's also Hope Valley, so it's a lot of overlap. Yep, there's a lot of overlap. I did count of the other zip codes, 995 patients that are Richmond residents. So that's with a census of about 8,000. That's about 1 in 8 residents of the town coming to get services, and that's a low number because I've left out that one zip code where there's a lot of overlap.
Hey, could I ask you, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just so that way, you know, we don't lose where you're at.
Sure.
Out of the 995 patients in Richmond that you say you serve,
Mhm.
how many of them were covered by insurance out of the 995?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can get back to the council with that number. The majority of people that live in the state of Rhode Island do have health insurance because of the Affordable Care Act and as well as the fact that we're a Medicaid expansion state. So where we see uninsured patients is usually on the dental side. And what we see on the medical side are people that are underinsured. So they have high co-pays, high deductibles. You might go to a private doctor's office or a place like Postal and you're going to see a sign in their lobby that says, if you don't have your copay, we're not going to see you today. You don't see a sign like that. We never turn someone away if they don't have their copay, if they don't have their deductible or their co-insurance. And if they can't pay, we either help them out with a sliding fee scale program at a deeply discounted rate, or we work out payment plans. Do not have a refusal to treat policy. We never turn anyone away.
Okay, but you don't have the exact numbers of, out of that 995 patients you say were served from Richmond, were uninsured, and you put it through your expense, your funds to take care of their needs. So you don't have that, figure. Because that's important to me. Because if out of 995, if only 50 walk through your door with no insurance, and you had to take it from your funds to be able to cover them, out of 995, that's not very many. And if you say even with out of that 995, most of them were covered by some sort of insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, regular insurance policies through their employment. And if you're saying out of that, maybe a larger percentage was for dental. Thank you.
I don't have that data at my fingertips. it does exist. Certainly follow up with Laura or Karen with that. I think that most would understand that obviously the reimbursement rates that are paid to healthcare providers does not cover the cost of providing healthcare. Labor costs have increased over the last several years. We are required to compete with other organizations that can pay a much higher salary and wage than we can, but we are still forced to compete with them. We often lose providers to places like CVS Minute Clinic. There's one of those just down the road. They're going to pay a nurse practitioner a lot more than we're able to pay, but we still try to stay competitive. And the cost of that providing that healthcare has increased. Well, labor, as like the town, we are an employer. We have almost 100 employees. We're still considered, although we are competing in the large group market for things like Blue Cross for our employees. We are still on the smaller side. Our premiums, we're expecting a double-digit increase in our premiums. That's no different than I'm sure the town's employees as well. Just a couple of notes on the services that we provided in 2022, some new services that are unique and often the only service provider in this area. We launched a medication-assisted treatment program. That's a medication covered often by insurance, but sometimes not, that is prescribed by the PCP to help people with opioid addiction or alcohol use disorder. That's combined with counseling, either individual or group, as well as peer services. Again, we are the only provider of that treatment in the Charahoe area. We've added access to dental services by increasing our staff as well as our operatory space. And as many of you might have seen, if you've driven up and down Route 3 anytime recently, we are putting on a 9,000 square foot addition to the building. And that's in direct response to the community need and the demand for our services. We saw a 20% increase in patient visit volume and patient volume period from 2021 to 2022. I mentioned our COVID vaccine clinics that we offer completely free of charge and open to the public. I'm sure many Richmond residents attended that as well. And we are the physician and dentist of record for the Charahoe School Department. Often partnering with them to provide either free clinics that we have students coming through that we're preceptoring and mentoring. In 2022, we provided 1,800 COVID vaccines. We're also a leader in the quality space. We rank in the top 5% of all healthcare centers. So as I mentioned, I'm here tonight just to provide you with, I could talk for hours about the health center for sure. We're all very proud of the work that we do and the staff that we have. It's very important to us that all the towns we represent contribute from their municipal budgets to the health center. It's would be somewhat unprecedented for a town that we serve to not give us anything. So I'm here to again publicly appeal to the council to reverse the decision on the recommendation of the finance board and to allocate level funding for the prior year.
What was the prior year's funding?
1,500. And their request was for 5.
And I might point out, as page 20 is correct of the packet on your website, all other nonprofits that have requests were granted.
So as a side note, Finance Board was aware of the American Rescue Fund funding that was provided to Wood River Health. That was part of the discussion when the operating money was cut.
Other questions?
I can say that I am very aware of the services that you provide, the quality of services you provide my family for quite a while until my doctor retired. Where we went there to get our health coverage, not because it was cheap, but because it was good and because it was close by. I'm also aware you guys had a big capital campaign and you earned a lot of money, and right now you guys are probably better off than the town is. And that is why I think we went the direction that we are with. We are trying really hard with a school budget that went up over 4%. And with everybody's income stagnant and taxes and cost of living going up, we didn't have a successful capital campaign. We aren't flush with money. And I know $1,500 is a small amount of money, but it's a lot of money when we're raising taxes on everyone for everything. I'm sorry that we couldn't meet your requests this year. That's not to say we wouldn't or couldn't do it next year. It's just that we are trying really, really hard to minimize the impact. We had a tremendous revaluation and we are doing everything in our power not to raise taxes on people that can't afford it. So that's my comment. I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm speaking at this time just for myself.
I worked under Workforce Solutions, and a lot of nonprofits would come in. We had a budget of over $10 million. And to be perfectly honest with you, we would probably deny your request for any monies, not for a negative reason, but for a positive reason. I would look at your bottom line and say, you guys are doing very well. You run a great organization. And there are other organizations that actually need help more. So you would be denied, all right, a request of monies from Workforce Solutions, to be quite honest with you, but not in a negative way, in a positive way.
You're doing
We are the
too good.
victim of our own success. I
Yes.
guess. I appreciate you hearing me out. I know this is the vote tonight, but with my appeal under consideration.
Thank you. Do you have any other items for discussion out in Cyberland? Any raised hands or anything like that? Now, the last meeting we had, Laura, we had talked about getting the fund balance down to 15%, and we talked about it was bringing it down to 15.2% or 4%, 15.4%, and that would have meant that the following year we were going to have a pretty substantial increase to keep our fund balance up. Is that correct?
Well, you would have to replace any funds past that 15%, or it's a one-time use of funds.
Right.
But so you would have to do something in your budget the following year to offset that 250. Either your fund balance is going below that 15%, which means in the third year, per the policy, you then have to replenish that as well.
Right.
Or you just make it to the level that it becomes the 15%, but you're going to raise taxes for whatever the
Right.
differential becomes.
But it's going to be a larger differential because we went to the 15%, 15.4% this year.
15.4.
I'm sorry.
What that does is that basically you used all your savings this year, so you don't have any savings to use next year.
Right.
Is the way I would put it with the policy that is in place.
Right, I was gonna say that it's up to the council to set the policy on what the fund balance is going to be, because I know prior councils, even under President Oppenheimer, they went and they, adjusted the fund balance percentage. And Joe Arsenal, when he was on the finance board, he mentioned that they also, at that time made an adjustment to the fund balance. So, with that being said, there's no reason why this council, because when the auditor came in, I asked her statewide, what is the average fund balance that other municipalities are holding? And she said 10% is the average.
I don't
Said
believe
that.
she knew what the other
She didn't.
organizations. I have
Didn't give
actually
an amount.
reached out.
She said 10%. I looked at the meeting. I watched the video. She said 10%. But with that being said, I called Westerly. Westerly's running a 14% fund balance. Okay, their budget is $100 million, including school and municipal. And the only reason why they're carrying a 14% fund balance, I was informed, because they're a coastal community. And a lot of times when weather hits us, it hits them pretty hard. So what they want to do is keep their fund balance at 4%, because they need to get things up and running fast. And then when the federal monies come in to assist them in disaster relief, then they can afford to put some of that money back. But Westerly, also said to me, why is Richmond running such a high fund balance when they don't have the coastal community effects like we do? They're running at 14% and they're in a much more area where, the weather would hit them. So just looking at Westerly, there's no reason why Richmond can't, at this point, lower their fund balance to 14% to give some more back to the taxpayers of the town.
Mr. President, if I could real quick.
Sure.
I
Westerly is
understand
not
that we are
Richmond.
not coastal, but that does not mean that we're not being affected by climate change and the weather. Our rivers are gonna rise. I mean, we had the municipal resiliency person here explaining it all to us. We
Right.
just saw what happened in Exeter, which is 100% because of, not 100%, but largely because of gypsy moth droughts. This is all an issue. So
Not taking care of.
not talking about the
this.
fund balance, but talking about climate
Well,
change. I know it's a little off topic, but we're affected by it too.
Topic. if you
Sorry.
ask me. I mean, that's just an agenda.
Go on up and,
Hi, my name's Alexandra Lepore. I'm a resident in Richmond, Kingstown Road.
Alexander, can I put this point in just so I won't forget it? Okay.
Okay, I'm
But,
sorry.
concerning, don't go anywhere, concerning the issue that happened in Exeter. When I was in DC about 3 weeks ago, I spoke with Senator Jack Reed. What's happening is, it's the same thing that's happening in California, because they're not managing their forest. When you look over the last 10 years, the last decade and a half, because California is not managing their forest correctly. There's a lot of biomatter on the ground that's the big igniter. And what's happening here, when we talked to Jack Reed, he mentioned that we could possibly get some monies, all right, to be able to clean up our forest that over the last, 10 years, we haven't been doing. And ironically, I was testified at the State House 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned, that we were, this has to do with the fund balance and whatnot. So when I testified, that was 2 weeks ago before the fires happened. And I mentioned it's basically not if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And then 2 weeks later, we got the fires over here. So that has nothing to do with climate change. It has everything to do with us not managing our forests correctly.
So,
so what was your name again?
all right, my name's Alexandra Lepore. I live here in Richmond. I've been here for about 7.5 years. I'm just kind of like, I don't really do these kinds of things, so I'm taking an interest because I'm kind of tired of everything. So, and I'd love to hear about what we have for Wood River. Thank you so much, so appreciate it. And I'm also very grateful that you didn't give them what they asked for, because I am working poor and on Social Security. And by family tragedy, I had to take over the payments of my brother's home. And I really struggle month to month too, and all this school stuff and all the money that you take from us people that live here is really really difficult. So you guys play with our money, and I don't really know. I'm sorry, this is like, I'm emotional, angry, I don't know, I'm ignorant to all of these processes, but we have to stop. And climate change, I just looked at, right now, the degrees are up 0.03%. Okay, we're not going to kill off our cattle. We're not going to give them injections. We're not removing or feeding our children crickets in school, because these things are there. Okay, we really have to think about what's going on right now. So I am becoming the state manager for Rhode Island for Operation Bedrock, and we will be serving our sheriff department tomorrow. Notice. So this is very serious, people who think that nothing's going on. Okay, I would just really like to be just grateful that you guys are thinking about us with everything else. So I just want you guys to save our money. And by saving our money, being responsible. I want us to look at the bigger picture of what's truly going on in our nation, because we're at a distress and people are watching Netflix, you know, the China conflict with Ukraine and Russia, and give me, pay me, and here too. So I have a castle that could be a castle in disrepair because I can't fix it, falling off the foundation. And I'm just kind of tired of my town, my state, and my nation. So I just beg people to hear me. I'm taking action, you know? And I just need you guys to listen to the little people and the big issues, bigger than our town. Because without our sovereignty, we have no town. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Sir?
I'm taxpayer John DeSalvo, live about 2 miles from here. We looked for about 20 years till we found, my wife and I found a house that we liked from South Kingston. I was paying about $5,000 a year down there, for taxes. I came up here paying a little bit more, $5,500. That was in 2013. Now I'm paying almost $7,500. Haven't done any improvements to the house, maintain the house. No new roof, no permits to do this and that, but this is what I'm doing. I have to work, I'm 65 years old. I want to retire. My Social Security is 66 and 6 months, and I can retire at full Social Security. Okay. Right now, I'm working all the overtime I can at Kenyon Mill as a mechanic, textile mill, to pay my taxes in this town. I don't want to move out of this town, but it seems like I'm being driven out. You have to listen to the little people. All of us aren't rich in this town. And where is it gonna go? My house just went up in value, $160,000. I almost had a heart attack when I opened up the letter. Okay, I'm not one to come in and buy property and sell it. I'm trying to make a home for my family here. So I'm not an opportunist or a contractor who wants to make a profit and run. I want to live here. I need to be able to live in this town. And if there is a fund where other towns have 14% and we have whatever, we should bring it down and disperse that money back out into the taxpayer who needs some relief. We need relief. We're suffering.
Have you looked into the elderly tax exemption that we have?
There's so many things on there. They want to know how many, birthmarks you got on your body on the form. It's ridiculous.
Actually,
I have a daughter going to
work on
college.
it. It's pretty simple compared to other towns. And-
Well,
and-
I never
and
did that. I
far
was
more-
never 65 in another town.
Far more generous than other towns too.
Well, there should be an automatic. When you're 65, there should be a certain percentage drop. You shouldn't have to. No, I have a daughter going to college, right? She's 22. She has a part-time job, makes a few pennies here and there. Okay, even that form wants to know how much she makes and how much she contributes. I don't charge her rent to live there. But yet on paper, that's going to penalize me because she's making, I don't know, 5,000 a year or something. You see what I mean? It's just not fair for the taxpayer in this town. Everybody wants to spend. The children are not suffering in those schools. I put my kids through that school. They got computers, they got everything that they could possibly want and more, and brought it all home. I never had that. In South Kingston for my other kids, I have 7 kids. Okay, 3 of them were going to school up here, 2. And so we need a little bit of relief and a little bit of concern. If we can disperse that overfund to the taxpayer, let's disperse it and lighten up the burden.
Jack, I agree with you 100%. Our founding fathers did not, all right, have our property taxes, your home, to be paid for everything that you're being taxed on. It was not set up that way, okay? And you know something? The town, as far as I'm concerned, is like an illegal squatter in your home, okay? That's the way I classify it. Think about that and don't lose that image in your mind, okay? They're like a squatter in your home, because if you don't pay your taxes, they're gonna take your house.
Right.
We're talking about tax sales right now.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, even with all that said, your taxes were not supposed to be derived solely from the backs of your property tax. All these things that you see in this budget were not supposed to be derived from the tax on your home. That's the bottom line. I've seen the taxes in this town go up over 30% in 6 years. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Colasar. Thank you, board.
Ma'am?
Can I just follow up on that paper that you said, the tax relief paper?
Oh, the senior exemption, the deadline is coming up, or it has.
The deadline came up.
Your name.
The name?
Your name, please.
Joanne DeSalvo. I was gonna fill out the form. And my taxes got dropped off to our accountant. We had to wait for all of our papers. I don't know about anybody here, but we always have to wait, it seems like longer to get all your stuff in the mail. And I called the town like about a week before the 15th. I have not gotten a return phone call yet from the tax assessor. It says on the paper, there's no exemptions. It has to be in by April 15th. I understand that people procrastinate. I'm not one of them. I just had to wait for my tax guy to do my taxes. He still hasn't finished them yet. So now what do I do? Because my husband's 65. I don't know. I'm really nervous, sorry.
I do think that we should extend the date. Because it's really too close to when the tax.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. And it's not fair because how do I not even get a courtesy return phone call?
No, and I definitely agree as well. It's something that I heard a lot knocking on doors and from residents is that people miss it and they don't know for a situation like yours. So thank you for bringing it up.
Joanne, I agree with you 100%. When you look, and you can read, anybody can go online and read the town charter under what the responsibilities of the town council is. Town council can change that policy very easily, just with a 5-person vote.
Great, then why don't we do it tonight?
I'd like to do that. I'd like to make a motion. Okay.
Yeah. We can talk at the next meeting.
The ordinance that you already said that you didn't want to amend, let's do it.
All right, well, we could change our mind, right?
I'm sure can.
All right, do I have to do that in the next meeting?
Yes.
How's that gonna help me now?
Because if the date for application is
change it.
For
extended-
next year?
No, for this
No.
year.
Oh, for this year? Oh, okay, okay, great. And I don't,
I don't want you to have false expectations, but I'm not sure that's how that works. I don't think. we
well,
can
hey,
backdate it.
now
Yours-
Lisa-
We can?
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool.
well, that's better than no exceptions in capital letters and nobody calling you. At least now I have a bit of hope.
I just want to mention that the reason that deadline is April 15th, because in order to set the tax rate, tax assessor needs to know how many people are going to get exemptions.
Right.
So you can stretch it beyond April 15th, but not a lot beyond April.
Maybe we could make it April 30th. At least that would give people 2 weeks.
I will give you a draft at your next meeting.
Okay.
I think maybe we should have Karen talk to Carmen, because being in the office
Laura,
next.
excuse me, one quick second. Can you kindly shut that door for whoever's out there after? Thank you. Sorry.
Being in the office next door, I know if people did not have their tax forms in time, I believe Carmen did accept the application and said, when you get that information, bring it in, put it with the application. The application had to be in, but if you were missing a piece, I believe she said you could bring it at a later.
Oh, that's great.
Well, then she should have called me and told me that.
Her, the name doesn't ring a bell at all, and she checks her messages twice a day. So I'm not sure where the message was left.
It was when I called the town hall, I go through all the prompts, I get to tax assessor because that's what the headline on the form is addressed to, the tax assessor. I get a nice lady's voice, which I'm pretty sure I've heard her before. And she didn't call me back.
Well, Joanne, just to let you know, I've gotten 3 other calls concerning the same topic. So, you know, something there's, and that's the 3 that I know about, and there's probably dozen more at least. All right, that, you know what I mean, are timid, miss the deadline, and they bite the bullet, and they could really use the help, you know what I mean, and whatnot. And I think this council shows that it's being very responsive, you know, because look, you are the town. We're not, we're here just representing you. So, you know what I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
Not to belabor it, but I did learn that when I dropped my taxes off, I said to the guy, can you do this really quickly? Because I have a deadline. And he said, well, you know what? He said, we're just now starting the residents. He said, the cutoff date was March 15th for, I think he said corporate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what you could do is, and people out in Cyberland, is you can get all the paperwork in, you'll hold it, and as soon as the council then changes the ordinance, at least folks, your paperwork will be in. So that way then you're not spending more time after that, all right, change to come down, get here, get the paperwork in order. You'll have it ready to go as soon as we change it. I
Even if
think.
the paperwork isn't
Aaron?
ready, drop off what you have.
Okay, we're,
Just point of clarification, because we've already publicly advertised for the elderly exemption, but not for this exemption. There's a public hearing already slated for May 2nd.
I understand that, and that change can be made at that public
It
hearing.
can be. And I just want to note that notice has been given that does not include that change, so I don't want. the
That
public to
does
be-
not prevent.
I
them
didn't
from
say they
doing that.
prevent it.
I
don't want them
just
to
have
be-
one question.
Finish, right, we're gonna go really important. I just don't want them to be misinformed that this item has not been advertised because that was not included in the initial notice.
right. Okay.
Did you send that notice out by email?
The notice has been broadcasted and posted in all of our public buildings. We have to post as well as our website through our Notify Me. So anybody who signs up for Notify Me would have gotten that. So I just want them to know that the version that is with that does not have anything we're discussing tonight. So I just don't want anybody to be.
so are we still gonna talk about taxes?
I was just gonna ask you one question only because I'm curious. I fill out my taxes on February 1st. That's when I file. And I wonder why people wait until the last minute.
Well, because I have another property that my mother-in-law passed away and we have her house.
Right.
And so we have to wait for all that paperwork. We don't get income from that house because we have a family member that lives there. So we don't obtain any income, but we have to wait for all of that. And then we have to wait for all of our stuff. And trust me, I would get it done, but it's been like this for 40 years. That's how my husband does it. And that's why.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah,
I'm Joyce Flanagan and I live in Richmond.
I'm having trouble hearing you with the maps.
I'm Joyce Flanagan. I live in Richmond.
Okay,
I thought it just would be worth mentioning that property taxes are high everywhere. And people need to understand that. I find the property taxes to be a burden, but I would find them to be the same burden if I were to pick up and move to any other town in Rhode Island, with the exception maybe of Jamestown, but you can't buy a house there for less than $500,000. So this isn't a problem particular to Richmond. This is a societal problem where we don't have equity in the federal income tax system so that people who have too much money don't pay their fair share. That trickles down to us in education funding and road funding. So I just think it's important for everybody to pull back a minute. You're not the only person having a hard time. We do okay, but I'm exhausted because I do all the yard work. Because I can't just pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them to come and do it. Taxes are a burden. I'm willing to pay my fair share. I'm sorry the woman left from Wood River Health. I'd apologize to her that we didn't support the healthcare system. Healthy citizens are a good thing. They're good for the town. They're good for us as individuals. They keep us all healthy, but that's tangent. Just get back to thinking, this isn't particular to Richmond.
Just to interject something. I know there are a lot of other towns that have a high mill rate, but you have to realize out of 39 cities and towns, Richmond is number 7. 1 and 2 is Providence and Central Falls. Again, you're not gonna like this, but 31 years ago, when I was on the council, Richmond was between 19 and 21 out of 39 cities and towns. So over 31 years, Richmond has dropped from basically 20 to number 7. And let me tell you something, being so close to company of Providence and Central Falls doesn't feel too comfortable to me. Okay, so that's the big difference. If Richmond was more in the middle, like we used to be, then it wouldn't be too bad, but we're not.
Ma'am?
Alexandra Lepore again, sorry, and I hear you how you talk about taxes, because I would pay my taxes too. But there's been a big break with the case with the Ken and Barbie Kramer versus the IRS, and they found that taxes are actually illegal. So I asked everybody to do their due diligence and research that, because we've been really fed a lot of smoke and mirrors throughout our upbringing. So I don't believe what I say, but I do a lot of research. So for me, yeah, I'm not paying taxes if it's illegal. So I'd have to research further for myself, but I just wanted to put that out there. So we should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it is difficult because while we might be, what is it, number 7?
Number 7.
Number 7. When Charlestown has the tax rate of $8.17. And they get the better deal on the schools, it's hard. Exeter's is $13.94.
All fair. We should all pay an equal part then at that point. Let's open it up and let's discuss it at that point. Sorry.
So, to compare our town to Charlestown that has waterfront property is not a
multi-million dollar.
not a really fair comparison. To compare our town to Westerly that has multi-million dollar homes in Watch Hill is not a fair comparison. We're like Exeter, we are like Hopkinton, and their taxes are kind of sort of along the same lines as ours are.
Exeter's $13.94.
I wish that everybody would really realize that school is the major draw of all of our taxes. So if I throw $1 on the counter, the town gets 20 cents. Town gets
Right.
20 cents to work and do everything that it needs to do. The other 80 cents goes to the school. So anybody who stands here and says our taxes are so high and you come here, I'm sorry to say you came to the wrong building. You needed to go to the school and talk to the school and talk to the school committee.
We did
And-
talk to the school committee.
And if I could,
Yeah, I've been doing this, I've lived in this town for 25 years. The school budget is the driving force of what the town gets to pay. They hand us the bill. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the school. The schools teaches the kids, it does its job. But the driving force of all of our taxes stems from the school system, which serves communities. We have a huge swath of land that the bosses need to bring kids back and forth and whatnot. It's the Charahoe Act that was put in 1958. There's a lot of things that go together, but to stand here and tell us that the town is doing horrible things with your money and spending your money freely, it's kind of sad because all of our departments level funded themselves and did everything that they possibly could to keep our budget nice and low.
When's
Okay.
the last time that that's even been looked at, Rich? I mean,
When-
Like, I don't even, I'm just like thinking about, cause like I said, I don't involve myself in these things, so this is like really eye-opening.
Regarding the.
If, I understand that the school committee, whatever, or
Well,
budget.
I'm gonna answer your question up front.
But you don't know my question,
I-
because first off, I don't know who he was addressing. He was kind of disrespectful and demeaning with his tone, first off.
So I wanted to
Secondly,
talk about.
just let me finish my point, please, because I've been
Ma'am, you've
listening.
been dominating the meeting,
Goodness, but there's a lot to be said up here.
but you're
Because,
not letting anyone respond.
but you're not letting me finish my point.
This is your third time
To
up.
tell us, the taxpayer, that we can't speak to you human to human. Let me finish my
It's the third time
idea.
you've been up, there's other people.
But I don't see anybody else wanting to
I
come
do,
up.
right behind
And
you.
I wanted to just,
I just would like to just talk for a second.
Can you wait?
Okay. Okay.
Folks, please, I'm just gonna say this one time, very, very lightly. You have a right to speak. But there are rules. And you have to be acknowledged by council to speak.
All right, I'm sorry.
Respect one another. I respect you, they respect you, respect one another, please, okay?
I
Civility.
understand, but I feel
Thanks, Chief.
disrespected too, though. I mean, I understand.
Feeling that
your
way is,
position.
I understand, but
You know?
constantly speaking and over speaking other folks.
I think I have some valid points.
You may very well have valid points. I'm just asking you to wait until being acknowledged by council. I don't want folks talking or remarking on what you say or interrupting.
Well, I thought they acknowledged me anyways. So it's all right.
Mr. President. Before we move away from the schools and back to the municipal budget,
Right.
I would just like to point out that we had a lot of people show up to vote, possibly more than ever. Voters passed it, voters wanted that increase. And unfortunately, majority sometimes rules, that's democracy. So let's get back to the municipal budget.
Catherine?
Just very briefly, I just want to make a few points. Regarding, the vote coming out to the schools. Charlestown's the third lowest taxed in the state. If I lived in Charlestown, I probably wouldn't be paying a whole lot of attention to, the school budget. And, additionally, the school had so many notifications. There was a town-wide mailing to every taxpayer in the towns to get the vote out. So that had a lot to do with the budget passing, and it didn't pass by a great number of votes. The second thing I want to say regarding the municipal budget and Exeter's tax rate is much better than ours. And there are comparisons, just quickly, there are comparisons that can be made across Exeter's municipal budget and ours that are quite significant. Regarding one more thing, our town was very generous to nonprofits with APRA funding. Hopkinton chose to give the APRA funding to their own residents by offsetting the need to spend town money on roads. They used APRA funding for their roads. So I would just like to say, people, this is just the teeniest bit of our town talking about the hardships that they are suffering. I hear it a lot, and most people don't have the nerve to say these kind of personal things publicly. And I see compassion from the town council by your response, and I just encourage that.
Thank you. I'm going to just state that in order to modify the Charahoe Act, we need the buy-in of all three towns. And if one town is doing better than the other two towns under the Charahoe Act, they're going to be unwilling to open the Charahoe Act to modify it. And that's the problem we've had since 1958. Sure.
Exeter,
Right.
our largest department is the police department. Exeter has
That's what I was thinking too, yeah.
zero.
That
That is
that
a
was
huge
my next
service
point.
that is missing in Exeter. So,
I was gonna state it, but thank you.
Ma'am, would you like to come back up?
Yes,
again?
there's also, seeing how you were speaking about the police, I had a heart attack in 2017 in Richmond, and our ambulance couldn't get me, so I had to wait a half hour having a massive heart attack for South Kingstown to come get me. So that is probably an issue too, since we're talking about the police in Exeter. So, sorry, I know it's probably off out of there, but
Just to respond, the ambulance corps is a private company that we have in town. And
Maybe we should look
you,
at it.
and there's a membership fee of $65 for a family for a year. You pay that fee and they come and they don't charge you a nickel.
Sincerely, if you're having a medical emergency, we're there oftentimes before some of our volunteers.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You call, feel free to call us.
Yeah, no, but I
Local
think,
trainers.
I think the police came, you know, I'm not saying you guys didn't go, it was just the ambulance, so I didn't know what, if that was something the town took care of, so. You know, we should fund that. More than the
Don't we have a
school.
rescue squad at this town? No.
They do, but they must have been.
They have more than one vehicle too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was, I just, it was a thought.
Is there anything else? Anyone else?
Motion to close public hearing.
All those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
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 We move on to the consent agenda.
Nobody has anything to pull, I'll make a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
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 Ellen?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Next is public forum. And so we open up public forum, you come up, state your name and speak about what you'd like to speak about. Sir.
Clay Johnson from Richmond. I appreciate that you moved the public forum to the beginning of the meeting because I can't figure out the whole meeting. I wanted to point out first, there was a report by RIPAC, January 2022, and it shows tax burden for resident homeowners with $319,000 in assessed property. The reason this is important is it puts the mill rate and the assessed value on one form. Otherwise, it's very hard to understand how we compare. Richmond is number 2 in terms of tax burden statewide, just below West Warwick. And everyone knows I'm a big fan of focusing on spending. I won't talk about that today. I do see you have a packed agenda with stuff about economic development. I congratulate you on that. I wanted to talk a little bit about what my experience brings to that. My background is a business owner in Rhode Island for 17 years. I was chair of the Chamber of Commerce for Southern Rhode Island and on the executive board for about 8 years. And there's a couple things you're doing in this economic development that I wanted to comment on that involve spending money. Spending money isn't always a bad thing. We want to spend money on things where there's a return on investment. And so we're looking at hiring a consulting company, hiring.
Shouldn't that wait until we have a chance to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, we have to, things that are on the agenda, we can't discuss during public forum.
You can't, but I
No.
thought I could.
No, you have to wait till we discuss it first. That was part of the stipulation of moving it to the beginning.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I can't hang around for that. So what I would suggest then is in a generic way, it's important not to pick winners and losers. It's important to understand that any money that's given to new businesses that come into town is not given to businesses that exist in town. And one thing that is not on this agenda, which I would respectfully request that you take a look at, is the tangible property tax. And for those that don't know, the tangible property tax is a tax paid by business owners that nobody else pays. So you buy a couch or a copy machine in your house, you pay for sales tax. The business owner pays the sales tax and then pays a tangible property tax every year. And part of the problem with the tangible property tax is it relies on the honor system. All the business owners out there are telling you what they've got in their inventory. So it's a tax, if it was phased out, it would be a game changer because across the state, tangible property tax is levied. And it would also reward honest businesses that are in the state that are reporting the tangible property tax that they're paying taxes on. And it's one of the only taxes that exists where you're paying a tax with no associated income. Sales tax, you have income, you pay a sales tax. Income tax, you have an income, you pay an income tax. There's no income associated with this. It's a reoccurring tax on something you've already purchased. So thank you for your.
Thank you. So Laura, I'm ignorant as far as tangible property tax is concerned. Is that something that we make money off of?
It is a tax that is levied.
Yeah.
But I also understand there's a lot of legislation upstate regarding tangible tax and that they're addressing it at their level.
For me as a business owner, it meant I bought a rug for an office. I paid tangible tax on that for the next 10 years. I bought a couch, a chair, a picture. I paid the tax on that, well, forever, really. I mean, it probably took like a 20-year before they'll take it off the bill.
Right.
So you. Anyway.
Could I add something?
Sure.
That's the reason several years ago, the council instituted the business registration requirement. So that the tax assessor would be aware of businesses he or she might not be aware of and could impose that tangible tax. Small businesses, home businesses.
Okay.
It was an equity measure.
Right. It is kind of, in my opinion, an unfair tax, just first blush.
It's a state, it's determined by state law. You would have to change the state law. You couldn't abolish it in town without changing the state.
We couldn't abolish it?
No, without changing the state law.
You have Senator Morgan here.
Yeah.
Might change that state law.
We are working on that, actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sir?
Yes, thank you. My name is Gary Stoner. I'm a resident of Richmond. I've respectfully asked the council to revisit and clarify the rules of the public forum between now and the next meeting. The last few meetings and the meeting tonight, you have sort of cut off people wanting to talk about a particular topic. My read of this, comment about the public forum, which is on every agenda, does nothing to restrict the topics that a member of the audience may speak to. It simply restricts what you may do in response and what things you may talk about. So I'm not sure that I understand.
It's in the council procedures on our website. So council has its own little procedures, and at the end it says anything not covered here is covered by Robert's rules. It's within that.
Then I suggest you
Add it to
revise this description, because what this says is that we could talk about anything we want to talk about.
Yeah, bad idea.
This is during the public forum, town council members may respond to a comment made by a member of the public if that matter is not on the agenda.
Right, but it doesn't say our new rule that we made when this. It doesn't inform the public that they can't talk about an agenda that's on, an item that's on the agenda.
Well, under the public forum, the rules and the regs, Aaron, can you just make
It
reference?
says that
to-
already.
It says it
Yeah,
already.
This is an issue for Erin. Erin is the person who prepares the agenda. So she can reword that if she wants to.
Yeah, either reword it or just make reference to number 4, section C, all right, under town council.
But make it English.
Yeah. That way
So-
somebody
so-
just look it up.
I was under the impression that if something was on the agenda, it was discussed when it came up on the agenda and not during public forum.
But it doesn't say that under
Right.
public forum.
So
For clarity.
I guess for clarity, we should put that.
Probably
But
one.
we're at, without a vote, and we can't vote, so.
So anyone else, anyone else like to come up for the public forum? Louise, and then I saw a hand.
Hi, Louise Dinsmore, Richmond. I was made aware the other day that there was an event at Ocean State Job Lot about their new solar project. I'm a member of the Economic Development Commission. If there are any business-related invitations that you feel that perhaps the Economic Development Commission members should be aware of, so we can represent the EDC at these town events. I think there's 4 of the 5 of us that are on the EDC here tonight. And I heard about it maybe the day before the event and I couldn't make it, but I would have liked to have gone to represent the Economic Development Commission. So I'm not sure if there's any future invitations that we could be made aware of. If you find it appropriate to notify the EDC, we'd like to be good stewards of the town and be.
I didn't know about it myself, so. Who did know about it?
I got the invitation via email, but I just felt like it's their personal event, like I'm not gonna extend the invitation out, but what I can do next time is reply to them and say, hey, I'd love to come to this. Here's EDC members that you may want to invite, and then leave it up to them to invite you guys. So thank you for that. But they sent us an email to all our town emails asking us to come.
It's the new email, the issue. Remember to go to the new
Last week?
email.
I've been using them, and I didn't see it there. So,
Well, that would be, Aaron, when those requests come in, you just email the EDC also.
Yeah, I'm like Sam said, I would ask job lot. I mean, it's not for me to extend, if I invite you to a party in my house, I don't expect you to bring 5 of your friends, but if, I would ask job lot, do you want me to extend this to our?
Talking with them, they love the amount of people that were there. All right, they love to see all those people there. It just really was a great function for them, and they love the support. From what I gathered, talking with
They were very happy
Job
over
lot.
there.
Yes.
so this came from Job Lot, this invitation?
It did, and they blind copied me, so I don't know who they sent it to.
Yeah, I don't have that in my email.
It was a PR firm, I guess,
Yeah.
representing both the solar and job lot.
Okay.
And they sent it out.
Yeah, maybe I just get left out of it.
Regan, I think it was Regan.
Yeah, the chief was there.
Great community partner, Ocean State Job Lot has done
Yeah.
a lot for this
Mhm.
community. Our
Yeah.
annual toy drive, Eric, the manager of this, fantastic.
Good guy. Yeah, I've got nothing. All right, ma'am.
So, just to clarify about the taxes thing, is it Richard with the hat on?
Me, yes.
Yeah, so you're saying because the reason why I came here is because I wanted to address the taxes, like I said, my husband said they've been climbing and climbing and climbing. And I do pay my taxes, I'm willing to do my share, but they're climbing and climbing. Now you're saying you're talking to the wrong people here about that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, what I'm saying is that the majority of the taxes, the majority of the burden of the taxes falls from the school department down to us. We get a bill from the school department on what we owe them for the year. 80% of our taxes that you pay go to the school, meaning they are the driving force of the taxes in the town. The town municipal budget is 20% of your taxes. So if you pay $1 in taxes, you're only giving the town 20 cents. The rest of the money goes to the school department. That's what I'm saying. You can come and talk to us about your taxes, because believe me, I'm paying my own and it hurts. But when it comes school budget time, that is the driver of the biggest chunk of your money, where it's going to go. We are 20%, they're 80%. And there may be a percent up or down.
Okay, so
So meaning it's the school committee that is deciding their budget. And if you want to voice your concern, if you want to voice your concerns and your opinions about your taxes, the bigger chunk of your time and energy should be at the school. And then 20% should be here.
why should I should tell them you're taking too much of my money? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm just trying to explain it so that people understand where their taxes. My mother-in-law actually 20-something years ago was the tax collector here in this town. Okay, well before I was any part of this business. And her biggest part was to get when you get your tax bill, to get that little notification up in the upper right-hand corner that states what percentage of your taxes goes where and where does it come from. It goes 80% to the school, or 78% to the school, 22% to the municipal budget. That was her thing that she put in and got put. Okay, so that people understood where, when they get that tax bill and they go, holy Moses, that's where that's coming from. Okay, that's what I hope that gets broadcasted. I'm not putting any disparaging anything towards anyone. It is just an informational statement that you can come here and talk to us, but the biggest chunk of money goes to the school.
Joanne, with that, can I interject something? With that being said, there are members on the council here that stood out there last year and helped level fund the budget. There were people on the council here with people sitting in the audience that worked and went to town, school committee meetings and, spoke their mind regarding the budget and whatnot. And it really puts a lot of weight when a council person goes and talks and, you know, makes recommendations and whatnot, because if it wasn't for some of the council people sitting here and some of the school committee members that were newly elected for the town of Richmond, that budget would have been a lot higher than what it came out to be. So the town council can have an impact, all right, on what and how much the school spends. It's if you're willing to, I'm going to put it point blankly, if you're willing to take the hits. If you don't want to take the hits, then you stay away from a very controversial issue like that. But if you're willing to take the hits for the better of representing your base, your taxpayers, and the well-being of the school overall, because when you have basically, you know what I mean, the voices of your council helping your school committee members, it really had a big impact even this year, because I guarantee you, if we didn't speak out and those new members on the school committee weren't elected, that would be, that budget right now would be at least 1.5% higher than what it is right now. So yes, the town council, in conjunction with your school committee members, can have an impact on the school budget if you're willing to take the hits.
I think the other piece to not forget is we are, if you look at the rest of the agenda for tonight, we are talking about economic development. So if we could put businesses into the places that are zoned for business, and we could bring more businesses in, they would pay taxes so that the percentage that the homeowners would have to pay would go down. So I'm hoping that we can get economic development as one piece of trying to do something about the problem.
I just wanted to address what you were talking about too. A 1% increase in the town budget, you'd barely see it in your taxes. A 1% increase in the school budget, you're gonna see it in your taxes. Because the school budget is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. We recently had a vote on the budget. Everyone in this room who's concerned about taxes should have voted on that budget, either for it or against it.
Well, I think, I don't want to monopolize the time either, but I think that I got the impression that if I voted yes, then I was supporting my kids and supporting the school. If I voted no, then I wasn't. So it had nothing, you know, I didn't know that it had a lot to do with taxes. Like, that's a big eye opener.
A lot of people don't know.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm thinking, I'm gonna be a I'm not gonna be a good supporter in my community if I don't help my kids.
I
However,
can say that money doesn't mean quality. I've spent a lot of money. A lot of money on something before and not gotten my money's worth. I spent very little on something. I recently went and got a set of euros at Salvation Army for my bedroom. $30 for the two of them. That was worth the money. They were Broyhill, they were top quality, they were perfect condition. But what I'm saying is that the teachers make the school, the parents make the school, and the students make the school. Money doesn't make the school.
well, all right, I'm gonna leave, but it sounds like from what Mr.
Nassani
says, we put they get a pretty good chunk, so
Yeah,
it sounds like. Yeah, I'm a little confused. I gotta think about it.
okay.
However, I vote for a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls and get rid of the dollar store.
The dollar store is gone. The dollar store is, oh, okay.
I was gonna be quiet tonight. Bob Sayer, Richmond resident, 28 years. Before I lived here, I lived in Situate.
Okay.
Grew up in Situate, hung around in Foster, Gloucester. Those are the towns that you should compare if you're gonna compare taxes. Foster is a higher rate than what Richmond has. They have a hell of a lot less than Richmond has here. But getting to the schools, I moved here because I married a girl who lived in Central Falls. I lived there for 11 years. I couldn't stand it. My kids were young and we put them in Catholic school, which we paid about $2,800 a year to put them in Catholic school. The problem with the school budget that everybody wants to talk about, but they don't realize, is that we are paying for transportation of people that don't want to put their kids through the school system. They want to put them in charter schools. We have to bus them. Look at the money that it costs the taxpayers to bus the people out of town because you don't want to put your kids through school. Now, I moved, my two boys grew up here. Both of them are teachers. One of them is in the Charahoe system. One of them is a teacher in Warwick.
Right.
My youngest son married a girl from here. She's a teacher in the Charahoe system. They got great education, starting out at the Richmond Elementary School and going through the Charahoe system. This is a great school. It's a great school system. It's great school teachers. It's great people. It's a good, diverse group that goes to the schools and everything else. But the people that are costing a lot of the money that is in the school budgets are the people that don't want to send I'm not sending my kids to public school. I'm going to send them to a charter school. Now, I'll give you just a quick thing. My son asked me, he worked at the Green School for a little while before he got his chance at Charahoe. There was a day where they asked for parents and everybody else to come in, career day, right? I went there and I said to myself, are you kidding me? This is what a school is about. You don't even have to have a teaching certificate to be a teacher at a charter school. And I looked at it as everybody was just, high fives. And it was like a hippie commune for kids to hang out in. It really wasn't a good education like you get in the Charahoe system. So as far as people wanting to complain about taxes, and believe me, I pay my fair share of taxes. I'm retired now, I'm on a fixed income. I pay my fair share of taxes, but I'd rather pay the taxes in this town than to move to any other town in the state. Thank you.
Anyone? There was another hand. Steve?
Would it be okay if I spoke from here?
Sure.
Folks, I just want to mention, on the heels of you, and I think correctly so, complimenting fire departments statewide, because there was a lot of mutual aid that came in to battle that blaze of 700 acres. Battling a residential fire, being stuck in the middle of the woods, trying to navigate your way when you have no idea where you are. You had people coming in from Jamestown, Massachusetts, and they're in the middle of the woods in Exeter with no road or bearing. And helicopters are dropping 600 gallons of water. And it's not a symphony. It's not well coordinated. It was great emphasis and great effort on everybody's part. What I wanted to mention, because you know that already, because we're a bordering town to Exeter, we got some calls from Incident Command. Spoke with John McDonald, who's with the National Guard, and he said the wind was taking the fire northeast away from us. It was great, but they were having a lot of folks in Exeter own livestock. And some of their concerns with their livestock were going to be in danger. They wanted to try to find shelter for them. Obviously, it's hard to find shelter for 8 or 9 horses, but somebody came up with the idea of the Washington County Fair. And DEM reached out to me. I reached out to Kate Fish and Pete Clyde Fish. Immediately, they couldn't do enough to help. They went down, unlocked the gates, made the stables ready for livestock. Now, that never actually materialized, but the offer was there. You know, good communities like that, and they're a great community partner, do things for the people that live in it. I just thought it was excellent that they did that. They ended up locking the gate, I think, shortly after 8 o'clock at night, but credit to them for trying to help out a neighbor.
Thank you. Any other hands, anyone?
I got one thing I want to say.
Oh, okay.
I'll make it real quick. Does anybody know what year last year was? Not 2022,
In reference to,
our town. 1747. Last year was our 275th anniversary and we missed it.
Wow.
We missed it. You don't get another sweet 16 birthday party.
What happened?
We'll have to do it at 300.
Yeah.
Good, I'm still alive.
We'll be around.
The point is, instead of lobbing bombs at each other and attacking each other, we should look at our community and look how awesome it is for our police, for our fire, for our rescue, for the people who volunteer for our town, and celebrate those people. And celebrate them all the time. The people who volunteer on our commissions, our town council. And last year would have been an amazing year coming out of COVID, all the things that we've done as a community, bringing people together for, food truck events, for the Washington County Fair last week, just the fire, a community that is there for you all the time. It hit me when I saw on our agenda that South Kingstown is celebrating their 300th anniversary. And I looked at the date and I said, wow, it's too bad that we missed it, but maybe we can just celebrate it every day by thanking everybody that you see and being nice to them. Whether you agree with them politically or not, whether you have a neighborly dispute or not, be nice to the people that are next to you, because you might wake up, pushing daisies, or they just might not be here anymore because they leave. So be nice to people and celebrate 276 years, but it's not as sweet as 275. So kind of take that from this point and go forward. But I just thought I needed to say that.
That would have been a great opportunity for the town to bring some money in and some first dollars too. It's a shame it was missed.
It would have been nice to retrofit the police cruisers and stuff with a nice little insignia. That would have been awesome, But in terms of kind of like a little extension of what Richard said. Tonight, I think it's been a great discussion. I didn't see anybody really disparaging one another or attacking one another. I think, it's a heated discussion on both sides. And there's really nothing wrong with that, as long as there isn't name calling and whatnot. That's a healthy democracy. Okay, when you don't see this, then there's something wrong. I would have to peel the onion back and see really what's going on. Okay, but the true disparaging thing that happens, it's not so much here at the council meetings, it's what's being said amongst other people about certain individuals and whatnot that has to stop. That disparagement, okay, does more harm than anything else, because we all can put a good face on things right now, but it's when we leave these town council chambers that the disparagement starts. And I would like to see that stop, because it doesn't do the town really any good. We don't have to love one another all the time, but it would be nice to say we like each other. And if we have a difference of opinion, we kind of end it at that. It's just a difference of opinion. When we get on to the next issue, that's what I'd love to see.
Amen. Great. In effect, change without it. Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. That's very important.
So, one going once, public forum going once, going twice. On to reports. So I asked for the town administrator report.
Karen, the floor is all yours.
And I'll try to be brief, obviously. It's just 3 updates. The first is about the roundabout. As you've probably seen, construction started yesterday. They were doing all their kind of preliminary work, so they're laying out all of their sediment control they, I guess you'd call it racing all those trees out there to protect them. They did some clearing. They said around the first week of May, the utilities will start their work. So starting with Rhode Island Energy, Cox and Verizon will start doing some work. And then, party will start work on the town water line, which is part of that project. Second update I have is on the Beaver River Playground. The council last meeting approved the expenditure of $70,000 towards playground equipment at Beaver River. There was some extra money that was allocated, but we didn't specify exactly what we were going to do with it. So I just wanted to let the council know that the we picked were two kind of large structures instead of a bunch of little small things. Scott has been working to actually try to renovate or preserve the two wooden structures that are there. So we're going to be able to keep those, but add the two new larger pieces and a new bank of swing sets. So we're working with the vendor right now, and the order's been placed. We just
Nice.
and then lastly, Councilor Sheehan had asked about an update on the Richmond School Safe Program, and I put this little graphic at each of your places. The council allocated, I believe it was $83,000 for some safety improvements over at the Richmond School. One of them was video cameras, which I believe they've decided not to purchase because some of the other things are coming in higher than they expected, but they're also doing a TV monitor, which they've already installed, a badge reader, which is planned for this coming summer, some window film barrier, which is also going to be installed this summer. Some design of the entryway, cement bollards, which they're actually going to change to something a little more aesthetically pleasing with some decorative concrete blocks at the west entrance. That's also to be done in the summer. A lot of these things, they obviously can't do with full stone such, and it's just too disruptive. And then some things for the police department, some shields, tactical gear, or door ram. So all of those things actually, I believe, add up to more than the 83,000, but I believe the school is planning to pay for some of those expenses.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hey, just a quick question for you. Do you have the cars that you park outside the hospital and whatnot? Is there a video live stream, with a camera in the vehicle? No. Is that something that maybe you think would be appropriate in this day and age to have a camera in the vehicle, especially when you park it near the main entrance, to be live video streamed, and that could be sent back to the police department?
Just so I'm clear, are you saying in-car video system?
In-car video system.
They're pretty expensive. We just went with a body worn camera, which is fantastic, but it's not live stream. Once that comes off the officer at the end of the shift, plug it into a docking station, it goes to the cloud to evidence.com to restricted account. But there's no live streaming of video there. Again,
That'd
that's
be something, like I said, I don't know what the technology.
being in the right place at the right time. I know the school surveillance equipment is somewhat dated, and ideally, we would have remote access and be able to view that,
Right.
which we can, but I think their surveillance equipment needs an upgrade.
That's something, is there a school committee member here that maybe can put it on the agenda?
Now you don't want to bring that school budget up now, do you? Okay, so the next report is Laura Kenyon.
So we went out to bid for the auditing services for this June and the next 2 years. I'm pleased to announce that Haig Sahadi and Company has the lowest bid at $27,000, which is actually less than what we paid this year. We paid $29,500. And so they slated the 27 for the next 3 years, and I just asking you to approve them. The state has already approved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
Thank you.
tax collectors report.
The request is on a date. The date that was in the memo worked for me.
I go with whatever's in the memo.
Good for me. Helen?
Yep.
Rich?
August 17th. Yep.
May what?
May 16th
May
at 5:30.
At 5:30?
She said it would be pretty quick. Yeah.
Second meeting.
If it's even necessary.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone just pays.
Appointments and resignations. So we have a request for reappointment to the Senior Activities Committee with a term expiring May 31st, 2026.
Move to approve applicants of Dennis McGitney and applicant Joe Reddish III.
I second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Yeah,
Motion to approve the reappointment for the Affordable Housing Committee with term expiring May 31st, 2026 of Pierre Duval.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. New business.
Unfinished.
Oh, unfinished business. I used my scroll button and it got it up to my. First is a request from Councilor Colasanti regarding the town council priorities for economic development continued from April 5th, 2023.
Sorry, couldn't get this to the council prior to tonight, but it is just for consideration. And actually, it's titled Richmond Town Council Priorities for Economic Development, Multifaceted Approach. That's the title of it. And some of the things that we've discussed here tonight, actually, it goes through it. It hits right upon, all right, some of these issues. And just real quick, I know it's going to be a busy meeting, and this is just for consideration. So we can discuss this and actually align this with some of the other items that may have to be pushed off to the next council meeting. But town council priorities for economic development, multifaceted approach. Economic development in the town of Richmond at this time needs to be addressed with a multifaceted approach, with the main players being the taxpayers of Richmond, the school system funded by our taxes, and businesses considering if they should invest in the town of Richmond. These three entities need to be addressed with responsible consideration of their needs. Understanding the needs of these three entities is crucial to move the town of Richmond in a fair and orderly direction. 2, A, stabilize the taxes for the taxpayer. B, address the budgetary needs of the school system. C, address the needs of businesses looking to invest in our town. D, empower the Economic Development Committee. E, invest a portion of new revenue to offset future taxes. Under A, stabilize the tax rate for the taxpayers of Richmond. 1, utilize the fund balance to stabilize taxes until economic development increases revenue. 2, put a moratorium on any new hires department-wide. 3, direct town administrator to complete a 5-year capital improvement plan and budget as stated in town charter and Article 4B, number 7. B, under address the budgetary needs for the Charter Oak School District. 1, work towards obtaining legislative relief from any new unfunded mandates. 2, request the school committee representatives to ask school committee to direct the finance director of Charter Oak to compare Barrington and Charter Oak school budgets for potential areas of savings. Barrington educates 200 more students than Chariho for roughly $6 to $7 million less annually, while following the same Rhode Island educational mandates. C, understand the needs of businesses exploring investing in Richmond. 1, services available to the business. 2, what the tax rate is in Richmond. 3, what the workforce is in Richmond. 4, what the regulations are. Are they erroneous or business friendly? 5, potential of a tax stabilization plan for new businesses. Number 6, partnering with existing businesses to facilitate expansion. And that's in regards to CDBG money awareness. Under 6, D would be, excuse me, at the end of 6, that was only the one. D, empowering the Economic Development Committee with directors from their presentation. Joe did a great job in his presentation at the last council meeting. Under that, number 1, achieved consensus by majority vote of the council regarding directives. 2, monitor progress on directives by an appointed liaison. 2, liaison provide regular reports to the full council. 4, work with the tax office to identify land owned by the town in its zone commercial or industrial, considering how land could be best utilized. 5, work proactively with private, commercial, and industrial property landowners to encourage them to develop their properties. And then E, investment vehicle to offset future taxes. New taxes generated by economic development. I propose discussion and consideration of setting aside a percentage of new tax revenue in an investment account for the town to accrue interest in a fully insured account, specifically designated to offset future taxes. And that, I went through it quick because I know we're really pressed for time. But if you look at the, the priorities of bringing these 3 bodies together, I think it's really important that, we have this multifaceted approach to bringing more revenue into the town, to getting the school expenses under control, and to work with economic development to bolster all that unused land right around, especially where Richmond sand and gravel is and whatnot. It's been sitting empty for years. And if we're going to help the taxpayers, the homeowners, I think these 3 priorities have to work in conjunction with one another in order to facilitate our needs in the not too distant future.
A quick question, Laura, the fund balance that we've been discussing earlier, isn't that kind of what Mike mentioned as the last thing? Considering setting aside a percentage of new revenue to invest in an account, which this fund balance is invested, correct?
Yes.
And it's there to offset future taxes, right? Offset future expenses and so on. So that's kind of something we already do.
More discussion would have to be had at the particulars of what his thoughts are actually on that. A lot of our fund balance is a matter of either unanticipated revenue or lower expenses by, tightening our wallet and going, I didn't spend what you budgeted for me.
Right.
But to set a new policy to take tax revenue and budget it as a reserve is an interesting thought, and I would have to discuss it with him further.
I think of our fund balance as the rainy day fund.
Why not?
Well, that's a layman's way of saying it.
You don't want to use it.
But
It's a stabilization for,
Exactly.
no, it's a stabilization. It's not to be used as a rainy day fund to be used for no purpose. What it does is it affords us not to have to go out for tax anticipation notes. It affords us funding in case of disaster.
Well, my wording way is different than yours, but I meant the same thing as what you're saying.
Rainy day fund is like Six Flags, that kind of stuff.
I can see that, but putting, having a separate fund, which I think we need to talk about, well, where we take a certain percentage of taxes and put it into a fund that is for the future, won't benefit us, but it would benefit the taxes in the future date.
To
And
do
more
that,
than glad to have this discussion, so that we can talk about what our fund balance is now, how we get it, what it's used for. You're using our fund balance that we have accumulated to offset taxes this year. So you are using the funds that we have accumulated in prior years, the fund balance unassigned with a policy, and actually used it to lower taxes. We're just happened to be the future.
The reason- You know, one of the reasons why I put this in is, you know, being on some of the boards and commissions in some of the bigger municipalities, Providence, Cranston. What ends up happening, unfortunately, it seems like everybody's been in this groove. If they receive $3 of new tax revenue because maybe Costco is coming into Cranston, everybody's got their eye on it. And then you know what ends up happening a lot of times, what I've noticed, they spend $3.25. So there goes the benefit of getting the $3 extra of tax revenue, because a lot of times they'll go out and spend more than that. So there's still, then people will say, well, what happened to the revenue, new tax revenue that Costco was going to be bringing in or has brought in? Because it gets spent. So the whole idea is, and I talked to Senator Gordon Rogers about this, coming from a small town also. If at the turn of the last century, the town started putting into an account, but they didn't touch it, and compounded interest works wonders. And even Senator Rogers concurred that we would be paying little to no taxes right now in our prospective towns if they had done this at the turn of the last century. Because we know how it all works when a lot of us, I heard, are getting close to retirement. You put aside, all right, investments, whether it be stocks, you're investing in I-bonds right now because you're getting almost 7%. You put it in investments accounts because when your big income gets reduced, you want monies there to be able to live on, and you do that. The town could do exactly the same thing. And it's not that maybe we would reap the benefit of most of it right now. We're looking to the future. Whereas at the turn of the last century, if our fathers back then thought about the same thing, worrying about the future generation, we would be paying right now little to no taxes. So that's my whole idea of putting it in a restricted account where it can't be rated. So that way, maybe if town council 10 years from now says, well, let's build a brand new high rise for the town of Richmond, and you rate, you know what I mean, your accounts. What good does that do?
What
So that was the whole idea.
So, I don't want to, it's not gonna be rude, but what happened 30 years ago? How come that idea wasn't there 30 years ago?
I tried.
And
That's right.
because when I first got on this council in 2016, I went to the director and I asked them, I said, when we get a new business in town, how come we can't take the taxes from that new business and put it into a separate account? And the answer that I received was very simple, because all the money that we get, no matter who it is, it goes into one pot.
Well, maybe
No,
it's time
no,
to
our
talk
town,
about
no,
that.
no, 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 our town doesn't just spend it. But the answer was all the monies go into the revenues, and then it goes outward. And it but that was, I had the thought,
Yeah, it's a great thought.
but it wasn't
Let me,
explained to me in great detail, but it was
let me explain a little about the taxes. So a new business comes in, they're assessed. That assessment helps us determine what the tax rate in any given year. We actually have growth every year in assessment. That helps keep the taxes lower overall. If you were not to include the new assessments, then you have a level base of assessment. And every time your budget increases, cost of living, whatever, then your taxes are going to go up, but at the same time, the additional revenue is being set aside. So currently now, if a new business comes in or new assessments come in, it just helps to let us set the tax rate for a given year. As far as investment of it, I have my unassigned fund balance, which is invested. That is why my investment income helps to offset any additional tax increase in this year. The rates went up, my investment income's going up, I don't need as many tax dollars. So, again, type of conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
As to, a further conversation.
Yeah, I love, I think the two of you are both on a great idea that we need another pot. So, it wouldn't be the whole tax, but a piece.
Yeah, a piece of it, a percentage of it. Because again, we want to look a little farther down the line for the next generation and the generation after that. We can't be so short-sighted. I'm thinking about my grandkids right now. I can pretty much care less about me. I'm thinking about my grandkids. And I think most of us do when we get our grandkids and whatnot. So I'm thinking ahead for them to make life better for them. So that way, like Alex, when she gets up at the podium, there's less of, those unfortunate people that are put, in that situation.
Grow the fund balance policy that there isn't a cap. Unassigned fund balance can go to 1,000%.
Awesome.
But again, too, looking at the school, again, the school is the biggest, portion of our budget. It's 78 cents, for every dollar that we collect. And when you look at, working with Charahoe, and there's nothing wrong with requesting them to see what Barrington is doing. Look, the bottom line is they're dealing with the same mandates that we are. And the school system is that they're educating 200 more kids than we are. And they're educating them for $6 to $7 million less a year. So there's no reason that our superintendent, our business managers should feel slighted or, denigrated if they have to go to, Barrington to see what they're doing. I would think that would be the responsible thing to do. And that's even taking out the monies for transportation. Because Richmond, Charahoe, we encompass a lot more miles that these buses have to go. That figure I just gave you right now, that's taking out the transportation, giving them an extra $2 million for transportation. So I would like to see them really take the initiative to go and see what they're doing there.
We have a long meeting, very long meeting ahead of us. We're not even half done, so
Sure.
I'd like to move it on.
Bottom of the station in the back.
So we got the Church Community Housing Corporation Community Development Block Grant Program continuing from April 5th.
Welcome back.
Good evening, Richmond, council and staff and people of Richmond. I'm back to tell you more about the Community Development Block Grant Program or answer any questions anyone has about it. I can kind of rehash the song and dance I did last time, or I can just help you get out of here a little
New
quicker.
information. That's what I'd love to hear.
Okay, what can I do for you?
Well, anything new that you didn't cover last time or anything you felt you needed to emphasize
So if Richmond is interested in utilizing the CDBG program, you'll have, and you want someone to try and administer that program for you, which I'm sure Sean would appreciate, because as someone said the other, we were at the Hopkinton Town Council meeting the other night, and they described it as a discipline unto itself, which it is. So if you're interested in doing that, you will have to go out to bid, and we can provide Sean with,
Can you send Sean a proposal?
absolutely, yeah, we would ask, so, the competitive round is about to start, and that's kind of like my busy tax season. So we're gonna ask if you guys are interested in this to just hold off until the end of June, beginning of July, when we get out of our busy season, and then we'll be here to help you go through that process.
But that proposal that you sent to Sean, can you get us a copy of that so we can take a look?
I didn't send it to Sean.
He hasn't sent us the RFQ yet, but I think, but the understanding, I think, is that we go through the RFQ process this year so that we can get vendor like church communities or whoever the best qualified consultant is on board, beginning in 2024.
Right.
And that's our program.
We already voted on the desire to participate.
We didn't vote on that. What happened was we all liked it. We all thought it was a great idea, but for some reason, I think there was a miscommunication with it having to go out to bid.
Okay,
So I
so
think we just need to make sure.
in that
that's it,
case,
right?
I would like to make a motion that we vote to put it out to bid.
Awesome, yeah.
Although any discussion on that?
Third.
Okay,
Yeah. Why not?
Aye.
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 Okay, so
And if I could just add, if Sean or any of you want our help with any part of that, if you could wait till after the competitive process, then we will be able to help you.
right,
And that process will close sometime the end of June, the end of July. And until then, we're just not in a position where
okay,
we
I
can give you
understand.
help.
But a summer fall timetable for the RFQ process to really begin. I
Right.
think that's a great time of year to start, like thinking ahead towards
Okay,
2024.
that's fine. Thank you very
And then I
much.
can't wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we go on to new business, is anybody up for a quick break? Because
I
we're
am.
going
I
through
am.
our stage. Well,
I
we're seeing
am.
break.
Motion to make a break. All this.
Well, board, that's how I like that way to do it. No questions.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
New business.
New business. Request of Counselor Wilcox. Hold for further consideration.
We got this letter in our communications last time, and I didn't realize the school committee didn't know if we put stuff on our agenda that affects them. I was just wondering if we as a group can just direct, I guess, the town clerk to send the agenda to the superintendent and the school committee whenever there's something that we use.
Does that sound reasonable?
Is that okay, solicitor?
I guess,
Is that gonna be a feedback?
no, but I guess if this is, usually if the school committee is involved, usually they're invited.
I think what you meant was like any information going back and forth. Because when I was at one of the school committee meetings, I got up and I asked them, I said, could you please directly or email the town council people any correspondence, so that way we get it immediately? And she said yes, and I think they want a reciprocal kind of arrangement, I guess.
Right, so there's,
Yeah.
I think it stemmed from an issue prior to our term involving snow plowing, and the school didn't know, town council didn't know, I don't know, but we're just trying to streamline communication. So if there's anything on our agenda that affects the school, we could let them know. And I can kind of see like where are we gonna draw the line with that, because tonight we discussed the school budget at length.
That's my
And
concern.
the next item on the agenda involves schools, so it's like, where do we draw the line, I guess?
Why don't you just send them all the. agendas?
Right, just make it a matter of course.
And
and
they
on
can
our
decide
agenda.
if it's important to them and whether they want to have.
Right. Yeah.
We can add that to their posting location. I mean, the school sends their agendas just for clarity of the community and everybody, because we're a posting location required for them. So,
Okay. that
but
makes
they're not
sense.
necessarily reviewed, they're posted. So I have no problem sending that. every agenda to them.
Okay.
Would it be,
But you make a good point that they're posted as well, like they could sign up for alerts, just like I do with neighboring. As long as it's not a huge hassle for you. You can do it.
so just to the superintendent?
Sure.
The school committee clerk or superintendent, designate that or?
Yeah, I mean, just to the superintendent, and she can place it where she'd like it to be.
Yeah, makes sense. Maybe the chair as well. They got a big blue book.
Somebody make that as a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So, I'm sorry, so recap. the people I'm sending
Motion
it
to send the agenda to the superintendent and the school committee chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye,
Aye.
Oh, aye, yeah.
excellent.
Great, now.
bet you better say I was your motion.
Took a break.
Okay, so the next item, number 2, is a request of Councilor Calasanti to hold for further consideration from the resolution agenda on April 5th. Mike, can you go through that?
Sure, I love the Boroughville's resolution, and as a matter of fact, we have a resolution from Exeter that kind of mimics Boroughville. And there's laws pending in the General Assembly. They're in committee right now on legislative gun control. And one of them is basically, one of the bills is, it would make it a felony if you want to keep a loaded gun next to your, on your nightstand. Their bill is stating that the gun and the ammunition have to be locked away in a safe. And if not, it could be a felony if they were ever to come into your home. All right, if there was a burglary or whatnot, and they ask you, where was your gun? And if you say, well, it was on my nightstand and it was loaded, yes, it was. No, if that law passes, you could be in big trouble, okay? And you'd be defending yourself in your home. So with that said, what I'd like to do is make a motion that Richmond drafts a resolution mirroring the Barville resolution, because, I mean, it says it all right there, and there's no sense reinventing the wheel. So that would be my motion for
Second it.
Richmond.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we were already a 2A sanctuary city. But this just adds another layer on top of it. So I'm fine with it.
Okay, excellent.
I found it kind of ironic that we started our last meeting with a moment of silence for the kids who were killed in a school, and then ended with this resolution. I had to explain to multiple residents that that was just a coincidence, we had nothing to do with that. But this resolution is going to urge the General Assembly to allow guns on school property. And that's just not okay. And I know I'm the only Democrat here, but I'm much more moderate when it comes to gun control than you believe. And I do believe there is a resolution somewhere between what they're suggesting and what other people may want. And we can find a good middle ground, but I think that people need to come to the table with suggestions and propose what that could be versus this resolution that would urge the General Assembly to allow or repeal the law that prohibits guns on school property. That's where I stand, and that's how I'm gonna vote.
Well, what it would, what that bill would do, if I have a permit to carry, that I would have to leave either my gun at home or leave my gun locked in a trunk. And I wouldn't be able to walk into the school to pick up my child. And you're a law-abiding citizen. There hasn't been one incident where a law-abiding citizen, a parent, or a guardian that has walked into a school and has shot up the school. Never once. But you know something? I would want to carry my gun into the school to pick up my grandchild. And God forbid if there was a lunatic inside that school, I would not think twice, all right, about putting my life in jeopardy, all right, to try and take that person out, okay, to prevent maybe a very horrific incident that could happen. And some of these laws also prevent even military and off-duty police to leave their guns locked in their trunk. They're not even allowed to walk onto school property with it. And these people are highly certified and trained with their firearms. And again, It's never been an ex-police officer or an existing police officer. It's never been an ex-military or existing military person that's gone in and shot up a school. So with that said, I don't agree with that.
Motion on the floor in a second.
Okay, so any further discussion? Okay, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 No,
My resolution is, my piece of new business is next. I did discuss this with the Woodmansey family, and, we are renovating the Beaver River Playground. Beaver River Playground is kind of hard to say. Ralph Woodmansey was an amazing contributor to this town. And so I propose that we rename the Beaver River Playground the Ralph Woodmansey Memorial Park.
Second.
Is any discussion on that?
yeah,
I would like
unless you
to
want to go
make a
first and do your
suggestion.
motion
No.
on,
Go ahead.
My suggestion is that you can vote on it now, but that you do it by a written resolution. When the renovated playground is going to be open. That way you've got a resolution that you can read, you can have a ceremony on the site.
Yeah, invite the family
Yeah,
for a ribbon
yeah,
cutting and
yeah,
whatnot,
yeah.
absolutely.
That's it, the classes we're getting.
Doing
Okay.
it.
yeah.
No,
That-
it's just talk. Just
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay,
What I was gonna suggest, because I think it's a great idea, I know he did a lot for the community,
yeah.
served, just as we are in Exeter. Longest obituary I'll probably ever read. But I just think a great reflection of that would be something involving sports and, like maybe the baseball field across the street instead of Beaver River Park. And I did talk to, I spoke with Robin this morning and she checked in with some family members. They're not set on a certain location, which I think is cool. And I think that with how into baseball he was, he
Oh,
founded
yeah,
Charahoe Cowboys. I know I don't think we have property related to that, but the softball field right across the street may be a really like great way to.
You know,
honor.
the thing is, I did talk to David about that too, and that is a really good idea.
Mhm.
And it might be a more suitable. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Sandy Shottier, Dave Woodmansey's sister, Ralph Woodmansey's daughter. Thank you. Thank you for considering this. Dave and I had Dave's on the softball field somewhere, I'm sure. Right? Dave and I did have a discussion. He asked me to come, tonight to meet with all of you, and we did discuss it, and that was kind of general consensus. A softball field would be, like, we're not trying to say,
Okay, no,
we're
I mean,
appreciative of whatever you do, and you don't have to do anything, but the softball field, I think, would be.
so I am officially modifying my new piece of new business. And I'm proposing instead to rename the softball field. The baseball.
It doesn't currently have a name to it now, does it?
I didn't see a sign when I was driving home.
Does any historian of the town know? Where's Scott when you need him?
Is that town property or is that Sharon? Would we have to
We
get
own-
approval?
we
from
own
Sharon?
the school.
Right, but we
If
have
it's
to get,
part of the school park, then the town technically owns it. But I don't know if the town owns the improvements. I don't know who is responsible for the construction and the maintenance of the base of the softball field.
Right.
maybe the leagues. We might need a couple more steps, but we can get it done.
So can we find out who we need to contact?
So you can make that in your motion.
Yeah, depending on, so I modify my motion still further to include the need to contact the authorities that need to be contacted in order to take action regarding renaming the baseball field. But that was entirely right. I knew when I read his obituary and I read it again, and then I went to the wake and I saw all the pictures and I said, maybe the field might be better, but I didn't know what our jurisdiction was over that field, so.
Which Karen has to look into it.
I'll look into it.
You look into it, okay.
So anyway, I put that out there as a motion.
Thank you. Seconded.
Okay, and I'm glad you came.
On behalf of the family, I greatly appreciate it. It's an honor. Thank you.
I mean, Ralph was the first person who approached me when I moved here in 2005. And,
For insurance.
oh. Yeah, he actually approached me to get into politics, but. That being said, if there's no further discussion, how do you vote?
I,
Aye.
I,
All right, thank you. Okay, and the next item is item number 4. I put this on, we had talked about, economic development and we're a town of 8,000 people.
Can I interrupt you again?
Sure.
Laura and Karen and I have been talking about this. We are not certain that the ARPA money can be used for this type of economic development. We think that it might, but we need to speak to the consultants who are administering the federal.
Okay,
Yeah, we need to make sure that you can use it for this before you actually designate.
if
it.
not, we have $70,000 set
Yeah.
for improving roads. We could use the ARPA money to improve the roads and we could use the money from,
That's what we need to check on. Laura already has a request in to.
I just didn't get a response yet.
okay, so in that case, I'll take this item and I will table it until you,
You can move it to the next.
I'd like to move that to the next meeting,
And
please.
also the other items that have to do with.
Yeah, we should move
spending.
6 and 2 as well,
Yeah.
as well.
right, because my items have to do, it's a very interesting that all of us kind of are all going at the same thing, a little bit different. So I wanted to, so we could maybe do it in the next meeting, but I
Right.
didn't want a consultant. I wanted somebody with a contract to, not just to tell us about anything, but I want them to go out and get the business. I want them to walk the person through every step of the process to get it done. And to make sure every piece of the is moving.
We have a lot of that with Sean. Sean does that with,
But Sean's job isn't economic development.
but,
His job is planning. So we need somebody whose job it is to make sure it goes through all the steps.
The procedure is not that difficult.
Well, it's not happening, not happening.
But that's not why. It's not because there's 150 steps.
Well,
Actually,
I'm not sure what the problem is, but I want somebody to walk company from here,
the town
here to
clerk,
here to here.
the town clerk sent us an email
I saw that,
explaining
and it was very
everything
good.
that she does, and she holds their hand and makes sure that they do step A, B, C, and D, and Sean is there guiding them through all the processes if they're doing a new build or doing whatever.
We don't
He
have,
guides them.
we don't have a single person paid who works for the
Mm,
town,
mm,
whose job
we
it is
do.
to do economic development.
But
And if I
that's-
could just add something from the email that we had received from the town clerk, it seemed almost like she was giving them everything they needed. I think if you need anything further outside of what the staff, including Sean and multiple people I'm not mentioning, then you need to kind of take your own initiatives to get legal advice. It's like they're
All I can
holding
say
through
is
it as it is.
Well, if
we
they're,
don't have enough economic development. I've been told by multiple people that it is the job of the town council to do the economic development. I talked to Sean, talked to Karen, of trying to get things rolling. But what I learned is it's not their job. So we don't have a paid person whose job it is to walk people along to make it happen. I know people, they put their application in, there's something that's not quite right, and then months
It's not-
pass and they doesn't really,
but that,
Ellen, it's
things
not,
get
it's
lost
not,
along the way.
it's not only streamlining the process for the person coming in. The person would also be responsible for working with the state EDC to try and lure businesses here to Richmond. I was on the economic development for Cranston, and I was on the industrial development for Cranston. And we worked with the state EDC. Now, at times when people would come to Cranston and working with the EDC person, Cranston has one full-time. Maybe we couldn't tailor what they needed for Cranston. But our Cranston town next door, Warwick, all right, could be the next best fit. So with that being said, the EDC point person would work with the state to try and get more insight, more leads to bring people in. They would be the point person, all right, to be able to go out and push our economic development, try and lure businesses in. That would be,
I think we're on,
that's part of the
I
job.
think we're on, Cameron's item, President Truman's item.
Well,
It's.
I just wanted to reel it back in, because right now we don't know if we can spend the money. So anything that involves spending ARPA funds on economic development, we have to hold off until we can find out if we can spend it.
We can trade off, you're right, road money. So that, from our, and we have the money to fund economic development.
Here's the duties of the EDC. It's on our. It's right here, it's on our ordinances and
They're
duties.
volunteers.
Encourage an attraction and expansion of industrial and commercial development that is consistent with the environmental policies and comprehensive community plan and town ordinances and regulations. Develop site criteria for new business development and expansion of existing businesses, and identify locations that are most suitable for non-residential development. Recommend strategies to enhance local conditions favorable to the promotion of responsible economic growth. Identify potential cooperative ventures with URI to stimulate commercial and industrial development, and research federal and state economic development funding assistance programs and services. That is the duties, that's the charge from the town council to the EDC. So the EDC has its marching orders.
So how's it
They're
working?
right here.
How's it working?
How's it working?
What I'd like to say to that is we just actually
It's
put some new people on it so they can have an easier time making a quorum. I mean, I know that it's not the best. Last year, I think they met 6 times out of 12, but again, they're volunteers. So maybe now it'll be a little better. We can see how it goes.
But
I think we need a paid person whose job is to do it.
the whole point of having an EDC and people who want to have a vested interest in the town, they have their marching orders. If they want to go and do this stuff, then that is their charge. To put somebody on the payroll for a town of 8,000 people. 30 years ago, Mike was here. He was sitting in this seat. Okay.
Actually, this
And-
is right here.
Okay, that's the over there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't watch the video. I
They didn't have video that.
Richard, for the Stone Age.
Yeah, I know.
Stone Age.
I should have brought my stereograph too.
That.
So the point is that 30 years ago, the implementation of policies and whatnot were not put in place. And decades of Mr. Reddish, and Mr. Reddish is no longer here. He was sitting here at this table too. And he now sits on the EDC. So he knows what the policies are. He knows what his directives are. He knows all the community plans. He knows what the town planner does and all of the things. And you have a town clerk who is hand feeding. We just had the new bakery come into town. They came in, they went to the town clerk, they applied for their application, they did all the steps, went through everything. Guess what? Lights are on, doors are open. Not a hard thing.
We don't have enough economic development in the town, but what we've been doing isn't working.
because
We have to
the
do something different.
Because we haven't had a group of people who are willing to come here, because many years ago, there was a aura of Richmond is not welcoming business. For many years
It
before.
was like 10 years ago.
We're talking 15, 20 years ago.
URI had students come and they did a whole development. You showed me those pictures.
But we have a lot of.
But
we also
nothing
have-
happened.
Sure. Go ahead.
Just a couple of comments, just hearing the conversation. So most economic development coordinators, like, people that are paid staff on the books of any given community, right? Their job primarily, right, is to promote the town. So they do that by, to Mike's point, by learning about different state programs for business startups. They go through the town's inventory of currently vacant properties that are zoned for a certain business. Yeah, they have a good maybe working knowledge of what the licensing requirements are from the town clerk's office, or what the zoning or land use regulations are from the town planner's office. But they're really there to promote, and they're really there to market the town, right? And I think until recently, the idea of economic development or economic growth was not it was a priority, I think, of the town, but it was not the high priority of the town that we talked about it in today, like in the year 2023. So I think the question, I think, for this council, I think, is it appropriate to bring in either a consultant or someone that's paid to reflect the goals and policies of what you want to do from an economic development standpoint, regardless of where that funding source comes from. I think it's a question of, this is a new position that you're talking about, basically, right? So or temporary, right. So like, I think it's just a question, I think, of are we at the point now where the time is where you feel like that the town is ready to basically have someone paid in support of the EDC, right? Who kind of acts as like the delegating body, right? That they can look at the goals and objectives of the comp plan and say, okay, like here's the things that are in our comp plan, and that you're delegating that responsibility to a paid person. Because what I'm hearing is that the EDC as volunteers are they're maybe not able to put full attention into this type of work because they're all volunteers.
Yeah,
They
because
have day jobs, they have lives.
Right. So you know what happens too? And it's like, look, we can all relate to this in our personal lives. We get a notice in the mail, class action suit, looks pretty good. Sits on your desk. Then all of a sudden you look at it again, 6 months later, you say, I missed the deadline. Okay? So now with that being said, we do it in our own personal lives. So not, all right, damning anybody here in the town of Richmond, but we lost U-Haul headquarters. Now they're over there in West Greenwich. They had looked here first. We lost Blue Wave Solar when the law was still on the books, where the land that the solar panels are on would be taxed much differently. All right, that has changed, all right, recently. And then Great Wolf Lodge Steakhouse, guess where they went? They went to the casino. So now there are 3 viable businesses that I estimate would have brought in at least $400,000, if not more, to the town of Richmond. 400,000 over 10 years. That's $4 million, guys. 10 years. We're looking at the short dollar, the long dollar. So there's 3 of these entities, all right, that went bye-bye to Richmond and moved on. Not saying whose fault it was. I don't even want to go there, because we all do it, like I said, in our personal lives. But we can't afford to let this happen anymore. And that point person would be somebody that would be responsible for this. So that way these things don't fall through the cracks. Because let me tell you something, guys, 400,000 in new tax revenue is nothing to sneeze at for the town this size with only 8,000 people. And out of the 8,000, all right, you're looking at like what, 3,000 property owners, all right, that all this tax money is derived from. Not the 8,000. That's the total amount of people. That's not where the tax revenue comes from. Tax revenue comes from half that number. Think about that.
Louise?
Mr. President, I haven't had a chance to
Okay,
discuss this.
just one second.
With those businesses that were mentioned, we didn't get any further details as to why. So it's really difficult to, I think, make improvements or change if we don't know why. And I was wondering if we could possibly ask a staff member to give us light if they were here at the time those businesses were reaching out to us.
Does anyone?
Does anybody have any insight on that? On these claims that have been made?
I can talk to U-Haul because I was in the town of West Greenwich when U-Haul.
Went to West Greenwich, so
West
go back.
Greenwich was there. U-Haul was there. They portioned off a G-Tech facility for their corporation so that they could have storage there, because storage of vehicles and storage containers were not permitted in the industrial zone. So they changed their.
West Branch.
Changed. No, you all changed their plan to move their headquarters in order to allocate the storage space they needed to pull the trucks there.
So it doesn't sound like it was anything the town could have.
I don't know that they had come here to Richmond.
Right, because you weren't
They-
here.
Well,
You were in West, she was in West Greenwich. Yeah.
Well,
so
let
What
me-
year was that though?
well, 20,
16.
yeah, 2016, 2015. But let me interject something. Just, you know, just basically my own personal business here. If I had.
Sam.
I'm-
finish
Oh,
your
I
point.
thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just asking a simple question. So we can hopefully, I don't know, move along here. So we're talking about using ARPA money to hire a consulting company. And as,
That was my,
That wasn't the recommendation of the E EDC.
that's
Yeah.
not what, request of President Trimmer for discussion and consideration of this. So when looking at that, looking at the item we're talking about here, and hearing what Sean had to say, I don't know if it's gonna benefit us at this time, because right now, I feel like we have a newly energized council, we have a newly energized EDC, we have new people on our planning board, and these two groups now have the opportunity to work together in a way that maybe wasn't done before, maybe was. And I understand that our boards and commissions are volunteers. I was on 2 before the election, so I know what kind of commitment it takes, and I see the commitment that our volunteers give. So we definitely appreciate any time you're willing to offer. But they have their action items, we have our action items, we have our comp plan. I just don't know if this is the right thing to do with this.
Well, the EDC director in regards to you all, if it was just a matter of rezoning our industrial to allow them in, to me, that's a slam dunk. Why wouldn't I want to do that? It's a dugout gravel pit. Okay, so what does it matter if we changed our zoning, an industrial zone, and allowed them, all right, to do that? That, to me, again, excuse me, I'm, you know, let me finish my thought. That would be foolish on my part as a business owner. If I had to change my plans a little bit, all right, to increase my revenue, I would do that, all right, hands down. So on a town-wide, hands down, to redo the zoning on that piece of cake. But it depends on the 5 people sitting here to do it.
we can't discuss things that happened in 2016, and it really don't matter much now.
They do, because it was implied a little bit
Right.
that we couldn't change our zoning at that. And
Right.
that implication may not be accurate. That's all. It would be good to have a look into it and see what happens.
Are you talking, you were talking about the Aiello property, am I wrong?
Sounds like it's a gravel pit.
The gravel pit, the Aiello property, right, that's private property. It's not even owned by the town, it's privately owned. So if the,
There are development plans for it right now.
right,
That we can tell you about later.
Let's see what,
Louise,
Hi, everyone. So I think that's a really important conversation to be having tonight. There are lots of different members of the council, I think, who are really committed to promoting Richmond as an attraction for economic development and economic opportunity. I think that's one of the reasons why a number of us came together to serve on the Economic Development Commission. We spent a lot of time, 5 of us, from very different backgrounds with unique skill sets to make specific recommendations to this council. We put a lot of time and effort into meeting. Ray Pouliot is here tonight. He's also on the Economic Development Commission. Brian LeBeau was here, but he left, unfortunately, and so did Joe Reddish. I'm just gonna say that we're at a crossroads here in our town. I know that many of you ran on a platform of being pro-economic development and bringing economic development dollars into the town. We decided to join this board. Some of us decided to join this board as volunteers because we wanted to affect change. But what we saw was that what was happening over and over and over again with the model that you had wasn't effective and wasn't successful. So we proposed something very different to bring the town into a new direction. And I would encourage you to read the action items that were proposed. They were very clear. One of the action items was to conduct an audit so we can take a look at what ordinances were barriers to businesses coming into the town, something that Charlestown did fairly recently. We also asked for a number of other things, and one of the things that we saw was that this town allocated a lot of money to a human services director, which was going to benefit many, many residents of the town of Richmond, right? But EDC and bringing new businesses into the town is going to bring in desperate commercial tax relief, which would benefit all of the taxpayers of the town. For you all to come back and now tell us that ARPA money cannot be used for something of this nature,
That's not what we said.
okay.
That is
but-
not what we said. You were sitting right there. You heard what I said.
that
That's
you
not
had-
what we said.
You had to check in to see if
Yes, we
ARPA
had
money
to
could
check to
be
make sure that
used
it could be.
for
not that it can't
for a
be.
consultant. You had,
Yes.
you wanted to get clarification.
Yes.
So there's no need for you to be hostile towards me. What I'm just saying is that you can't say in one hand that human services is a priority of the town and not say that economic development doesn't deserve equal priority.
Can
That's
I-
what we're
can I-
saying.
Can I break in here?
Of
None
course.
none of this was said. None, what you're saying now, none of that was said. Nobody said that it's not an equal footing to human services director. Nobody said we couldn't use opera funds. So I think you're jumping the gun a little bit.
Let's just do something that brings economic development into Richmond. That's my
Right.
point.
Right.
Let's not dance around this because nothing that we've been doing up to this point has worked and has been successful.
No, I
That's all
agree.
I'm
We
saying.
need to bring more business into town.
Okay.
But businesses that didn't relocate here in 2016, don't matter now. And there was no comment made about we can't use or won't use ARPA funds. There's ways around it and they're gonna look into it. And so I put off my item and suggested putting off the other items until we can find out what we can do. In fact, I will pull my item completely. I pull item number 4 completely because hiring a consultant or a lobbyist was not a recommendation. I thought it was somewhere between hiring a town employee, which I don't want to do and I am absolutely against, and doing nothing. Yeah.
Even though they didn't recommend it, I think it's a great suggestion as a compromise, and I think it's great that we're having this open discussion.
Mhm.
And we should be able to continue to have that open discussion, because if we decide that we don't want to move forward, then checking in on this may not be relevant, especially, people understand.
What I'd love to do with the council's blessing is to take all of these items that refer to allocating, spending, appointing, hiring, and put them into one discussion item so that we can come to a conclusion that this is what we want to do.
So motion to put on the, postpone to the next agenda, item 4, 6, and 12.
Well, we'd also.
11.
Well,
Well, let's
And-
do that
11 and 10 too,
because
those don't end.
it'll be 4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6.
Yeah, that's it.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
So if one goes down, they all go down.
No,
You put them all together.
we figure out where we're gonna go with it. Because my item was before other items and maybe other items were preferable to mine.
Right, but you might decide to do an audit, but decide not to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking about the only things I want to pull to make into one thing is hiring a person, a consultant, how much, that kind of thing. As far as discussing the liaison to the EDC, that's fine. And as far as doing an audit, that's something we can vote on and talk about tonight. But because I made a comment, I made a request to hire a consulting company, a consultant or a lobbyist. And another was made to hire somebody at $125,000, full-time employee of the town.
No, no,
No,
no.
no.
Two-year contract
That's a
with
contract
no health
employee.
benefits, right?
Okay, but
Blah, blah, blah,
we
what it
need
is.
to kind of figure out which one of those we want to do.
Right. I think it's great for us to talk about it, come up with a plan.
I don't want to compete with another thing. I want to discuss it, have us come up with.
Perfect.
All right, I have no problem combining some of these numbers together. As long as we have a good, faithful, open, discussion,
Right.
you know what I mean, on this, I have no problem with it. Because me personally,
We're all on the same
We're all-
page, really. We're just trying
pretty
to
much
figure
on
out
the same
what we're on the
page,
page.
Right.
I've been putting a lot of time into this. I've got Charlestown's commitment from the auditing company right here, which I'll give to.
How much was the? rough-
Well, let's
Okay.
let's put this also on the agenda, you know what I mean? So we discuss all these things together, even.
You're like all
I
in
think
the
what we
map.
could do is we can give like one agenda item, discussion of using ARPA funding for economic development, then sub A, and then all
Exactly.
these 3, 5, 6, 10, whatever numbers they are, we can
I
put them as.
can give you this from Charlestown, let me cover it.
I need clarity on, Mark pulled number 4, he pulled his item, then Samantha went to continue items 4 and 6, and then we began in a discussion.
Should we to add 5 as well and 12, because that's under the same, it's different, but it's under the same, can we use this money for this? It's under the same umbrella.
Can I just please
I
try
make
to
a
clarify
motion.
that? So Samantha's motion is 4, 5, 6,
We can move on to 7, 8, 9, 10.
to the next agenda. 4, 5, 6, and 12.
I
The next
second that.
agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Right. So now we move on to item number 7. Request from Councilor Consanti, consideration of eliminating the town council stipend.
I think it just be consistent with our other boards and commissions where, it's totally volunteer. They don't get paid, and, I just like to see, town council as a majority, because it has to be a majority to, put that money towards, helping the people that need it the most.
It's all right with me.
We would need a motion and a second to discuss it.
Yeah, that was my motion to eliminate the stipend.
I second it.
Town council.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I don't mind getting rid of my stipend personally, but I don't want to make that decision for the future. Council and candidates,
Correct.
because we heard from a lot of people that, they can't afford to live here. So how can they afford to get involved? I just think that we shouldn't eliminate town council stipends, that we should just personally just not take it.
Well,
It has to be,
We can personally just say, hey, I don't want my stipend. I haven't been offered my stipend.
okay, so I agree with that and then some. I use my stipend to pay for ink to print things out at home. And other things, and I don't want to give up my stipend. I mean, that's me.
And that's why I think it should be a personal choice if we choose not to.
I mean, if we're looking to save money, we discussed an item that you had on the agenda quite a while back about getting a package that uses paper, ink, and all of that stuff, and that costs a few $100s a year too. That the other,
my hard copy.
yes,
Costs about $100 actually, a packet.
It's town business.
well, so is the stipend.
It is. It's town business. And I print a ton of stuff myself. So.
Also,
If you choose to take your money and give it back to the town, then go for it.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. So we
Okay.
to vote on it.
So any further discussion? Okay, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nay.
No.
No.
Okay, the motion does not carry. Next,
Number 8.
number 8, request Councilor Sheehan for discussion and take action on reducing the unassigned fund balance policy.
So I've been thinking a lot about the fund balance. And we know that in the booklet that we received with the financial statement from last year, in one place it says that 10% general fund is a healthy one. That was on page 5. And the town policy is to have it at 15. We were at 16.2. So I'm proposing that we be a little bit more conservative on the fund balance and move it to 14. I don't want the fund balance to get too big because it means the taxpayers are being charged too much. And also it opens the minds of people to spend extra money, potentially leading us into more debt than we have now. And just looking at the financial reports from a couple of local towns, that 2 of them said they had healthy fund balances, and they both said, we're thinking about what we're going to spend it on now. So having too much money available, not a good thing. Now that's separate than the discussion we had before about having a separate fund to save for the future of our grandchildren. So I'm aware that the fund balance cannot and should not be used to balance the budget. What I'm asking is for a slightly more conservative fund balance to provide backup for us, but to discourage the urge to spend.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
First question
Well,
is,
we have to have a motion and a second
oh,
to discuss. So
Second.
you made a motion? and
Okay. I
To,
make a
to
motion
lower the
to change
fund,
the fund balance to 14%.
and that's so, and you second. Okay, so go ahead.
my question was, how does the fund balance encourage spending? And how much is too much to have?
So Laura,
Well, it's Helen's statement, so I'd like, to have her perspective.
I have two pieces of.
Well, Helen.
No, Helen needs to answer that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, but he was asking Helen and.
Because Helen made a few statements and I just had never heard.
Okay,
Oh,
go
so
ahead.
when I
See across the board with governments, as soon as they have money, they find a million ways to spend it. So.
Yep.
So they need to not have so much, we need to have our money in case things go bad. So we need that. But 14, if 10% is a healthy fund balance, and we're up to 14, then that should be a good backup for the town. But it's not good enough. It makes us start thinking, oh, we could pull a couple of million for this or that. So that's how I came up with.
So just other town governments do that.
Other,
That was
yes,
the-
they pull it.
The other question was how much is too much?
I have 2
I would
items.
say 16 is too much. 14 feels right.
I have 2 correspondence here, one from the town of Exeter, one from North Kingstown. Exeter says, in particular, the unreserved fund balance may serve as a useful measure of the town's net resources available for spending at the end of the fiscal year. Okay. North Kingstown. This budget, along with our fund balance in unrestricted accounts, will allow for some exciting projects in initiatives to take place over this next fiscal year. So it's nothing that other towns in their audited paperwork have stated that they want to use the fund balance for exciting and new projects.
but that's another town.
Well, I know, but still, everybody likes to compare surrounding towns and whatnot, okay? In other words, if it's not us, somebody else could have their eye on it, okay, and then really push. And that's not being fiscally responsible. I think, again, after talking with folks from Westerly, $100 million. They have a 14% fund balance, all right, which is $14 million. And again, when I discussed with them, and anybody can do this, all right, you pick up the phone and you talk to your counterparts in other towns. 14% is a good fund balance for them because being a coastal town. They said, you guys are not a coastal town. And we're only running a 14%, you guys are running, all right, over 16% fund balance. They said right off the bat, that doesn't make sense. Going down to 14% would be, as far as I'm concerned, fiscally prudent. And it would actually help, again, our taxpayers out, because until we get economic development going, we want to be able to take care of and buffer, all right, our taxpayers by using money that they've been pre-taxed on, pre-tax dollars that the town hasn't needed. Think about that. Pre-taxed on tax money that they didn't need. So now I want to give some of this money back to the rightful owners to buffer until the town of Richmond can get their economic development going, and then the switch will take place.
I think the other two pieces.
He hasn't had a chance yet.
Okay.
So you want to help, you want to protect the taxpayer by giving them some money back, but putting the town at a potential financial stranglehold. That's going to give them, that's going to give the taxpayer a good, warm, fuzzy feeling when economic development doesn't happen today. It doesn't happen next week, and it certainly doesn't happen in a quick year. We got Aqua Science, who is doing his build out, which was approved last year. It's still going to take him another year and a half or 2 more years before he has his buildings up and he has his revenue coming in for his business. So putting the town putting us in that financial is not a straitjacket, but putting us in that position to give the taxpayer a little bit of ease that, what was it, $150 or something at the last meeting, gives us 84.
She said 85.
85, giving them that $85 or $100, whatever it was. But then in turn turns and puts a strain on the town itself, so that you have that warm fuzzy feeling for 1 year. Next year you're going to get a $180 tax bill, an increase, because town needs to make up that money. That doesn't equate. Economic development takes years and years to develop. And Aqua Science is a perfect example. He got his approvals. He's still in development stage. He's not even going to have money for another 2 to 3 years. So where is that? So where is that you cut here and then you wait for your money to come years later? But in the interim, we have the police that we have to pay for. We have all these other institutional things that we have to pay for. So cutting here today doesn't give you warm and fuzzy tomorrow.
Might make us.
Well, I'd like to
May I?
have Laura's input.
So there's basically 2 topics going on at the same time. One is the fund balance policy, and another is what we did in our budget, our operating budget for. If you look at our fund balance policy, it states that the town will maintain a minimum unassigned fund balance in its general fund ranging from 15 to 20% of the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures and ongoing transfers. Helen has suggested that range basically go to a 14 from a 15%. Again, I'm just stating, and I'll go on. So this minimum fund balance is to protect against cash flow shortfalls, which we have because our first year tax quarter is not in July. We're ending our tax year. We collect our last quarter of taxes at the end of our fiscal year. So that shortfall, when a budget increase is helped by having an unassigned fund balance. And
How much was that last year for?
What?
The monies that you had to use? From the
We
fund
make a
balance.
big payment to Charo.
we make our payments to Charahoe in July and August for about what our first quarter taxes are. But aside, let's just go on, and to maintain a budget stabilization commitment. So that's the reason for it. Now, in going on, so I'm not saying we're that far off from what the policy is. When the fund balance falls below 15%. Now, the only way where we are now, where a fund balance would fall below that 15% is that we use more in the operating budget and we budget for it. Or we have a loss in our current year, because that would be the only other reason why our fund balance would go down. Or we changed our commitments from unassigned to a commitment, which does happen sometimes. You commit the funds for something, such as I'm going to commit the funds, I'm going to commit amount of money towards future tax stabilization. That is a vote of the council to commit funds, which is why I want to discuss with you your thought of separate fund. There are other ways to deal with it. But the one thing I really do want to say is there is also in here, if that fund balance falls between 12.5 and 15, it has to be replenished within a year. Between 10 and 12, it has to be replenished over 3 years. We've been working on that. The fund balance was below what the policy had. We have finally gotten above the 15%. But surplus fund balance unassigned that exceeds the 20% range. Now, if you're saying 14, for the 14% range. Town of Richmond shall consider such fund balance surpluses for one-time expenditures that are not recurring in nature, which is not necessarily what we have done with using the unassigned fund balance towards reducing the taxes. Again, different conversations to what the policy is. I'm just throwing it all out for consideration, and maybe we can think about it and again, table something until the next meeting.
Talking about it. I know that also Charahoe school system, they have their own fund balance too. So
They have two, right,
Two
they have
fund
two,
balances?
no, they have 2%. They have,
2%.
well, they have to hold between 2 and 4.
okay.
Right now, their budget is at 2.25. You're right, so they're basically holding 2.25% of our contribution in their fund balance.
So it's basically a double dip
Or
because we're
it's
basing.
not a
our
double-
fund balance- Yes, it is.
It's not a
We're
double
basing-
dip.
well,
On
we're
top of
basing-
what, I'm sure they considered it when they did the policy, or maybe they did or didn't. But it is in addition to what we hold.
And also
But-
$80,000 in, I forget the word that is used. There are 3 different funds. One has 20,000 and 2 of them have 10,000. In different departments. Or in the. Somewhere in these papers, but I don't know where I thought I had typed it on this page, but I don't.
In our budget or the school budget?
No, it's our budget. It's in the
Contingencies?
contingencies. What is
Yes.
80,000 in contingencies?
Correct. If we don't need them, that money falls to fund balance.
Well, the bottom line is the school has collected tax revenue from us. They've got that fund balance also in their account that we pay the taxpayers of Richmond. All right, and when you look at it, we pay a percentage, just a little under 40%, all right, for our share. So they've got monies there, all right, to cover their fund balance just in case something happens. But we're also accumulating.
We're not this on our budget, our policy.
I'm getting to that. If you let me continue without interrupting me, please. Okay, have the respect for one another. we're also now, our fund balance includes the total municipal and school budget. So we're doubly, all right, accounting for a fund balance for Charahoe. We got it for the town, and the school is also doing it for us on the school side also. So we're getting double hit, all right, with that fund balance. The school, both municipal and on the school end. So with that being said, again, I've talked to Cranston, I've talked to Exeter, I've talked to South Kingstown, I've talked to Westerly. And when the auditor came in from Bacon and Company, all right, I asked the question 2 times, and you can just look up the meeting, all right, on the video. I asked her 2 times, and finally the second time she answered me. What is the average that the municipalities around the state carry for a fund balance? And she specifically said, go back and watch it.
I did.
She said 10%. She said 10% is the average, and we're over 16%. Westerly is only 14%. So as far as I'm concerned, 14%, if we were to lower our fund balance to 14%, we'd be really good shape.
So on this topic, again, so I'm saying it's two things going at the same time. Nothing's to say that you couldn't leave your budget the way it is with the 250 this year. We have other discussions that you brought up this evening about thinking of putting funding aside. I think it's hand in hand. One will have to address the other. Vote and feel comfortable with whatever you decide on the budget. And then we can deal with fund balance, unassigned, committed, and a new policy as a separate issue. So we don't have to actually address and answer this before the budget is passed, just to let you know. We could continue this discussion on the other economic discussions that the council would like to vote on. We don't have to rush. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, we'll come after that discussion, after the budget is done.
Yeah, because if anybody wants to go online and pull up the audit 2022, page 5, it says the town's unassigned fund balance can be deemed adequate based on the size of the town's budget, as a healthy fund balance is usually around 10%. It says it right there in black and white. So with that being said, we'll do with Ms. Kenyon.
All right, so before you, if you're gonna move on, I don't know, are you taking resident comments, because you do have a member that's.
Yes, I'd love to have
And
resident
he's
comment.
virtual.
Sure. Oh, it's good.
And then- No, he's virtual, he's been up for a
Okay.
long time.
Okay.
This is Chris Cohen, a resident of Richmond. So it strikes me as an interesting discussion because with your proposal in the budget to essentially take part of the budget and use it to offset a tax increase, I think that's a useful goal and objective to try to go for the unassigned fund. I think it's an important piece to identify the fact that if the council has proposed to do that, that this gives you, by pulling this money and then trying to advocate for the lowering the percentage, it creates an image that you're looking to steal the fund balance in order to offset this tax, because essentially you're trying to use that money that you removed and then reset the saving goals of the town in order to offset this particular goal. It also seems a bit contradictory to the goal that Councilor Colasanti put out about trying to then recapitalize on some of the business development that would eventually occur, because now you've removed that goal for trying to then save some of that funding. So I think from the perspective, it seems like either the goal ought to be and it seems very reasonable to, in a year that's rough, to take the tax fund, take this unassigned fund and use it to offset a tax increase while we're dealing with inflation and while businesses need to grow, and then shifting instead to, grow that funding, that savings back up in years when businesses are better and people have more money. I guess this motion reads as trying to do two things that are in opposition to one another. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I'm Catherine Colasanti from Richmond. Personally, I think a strong case has been made that there's nothing irresponsible and actually is responsible to lower the fund balance to 14%. I think that, I believe it was you, Mark. Yes, it was, Counselor. Let's see, said that, the opera money, if it was not able to be used for the economic development, it could be used for the roads, and you could still take care of economic development. I think Mr. Clay Johnson made a great case of how we have to look at some expenditures are actually an investment to save money. So my personal opinion is, again, that an excellent case has been made that we can responsibly lower the fund balance to 14%. I don't really see why that has to be, we have to wait on that. And I think that Mrs. Kenyon has made a great point that, then we need to have our policy reflect that. So that is my input.
Thank you. Myself, I feel that huge fluctuations in a budget are a bad thing. Huge tax cuts, huge tax increases are a bad thing. And I think that when we discussed dropping the fund balance from, if was it 16.2 to 15.04 or 15.4, I thought it was 15.4.
0.4.
Okay, that we were still within the policy that we already had in place. And that was showing a very, very moderate fluctuation. It was giving a little bit of relief. And it wasn't going to result in a huge tax increase the following year, but it's going to result in a larger tax increase the following year than we had originally planned for. And we talked about that.
We did, because it's being used for a recurring expense, not a one-time.
Right. And to me, conservative is having a larger fund balance. Liberal is having a smaller fund balance. That's my 2 cents on the fund balance. You're our financial expert. And can you explain why we have a 15% minimum fund balance?
How long did, one question, sorry to interject, how long did it take us to recover from that? What was it, 12 or 13% that we were at?
I don't have that information in front of me. I can get it to you for the next meeting.
But you alluded to it before, that we were well below our stated policy for many years.
Well, for a couple of years. I've only been here 4, but I know that
When you started.
we've been building.
But it's taken you 4 years to build.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay. I can tell you with a little fair amount of great confidence, it's taken you at least 4 years to build up to where you are. Because I remember for years we were hovering at that 12 or 13%, and it possibly even lower. And I remember it well being, we were catching it from the financial director at the time,
And a
saying
lot-
you're not in a good
That was
place.
when Kelly was
It was when Kelly was
And,
here.
and I am going to say a lot of times that a town would use their fund balance is when they're up against that 4% levy.
Right.
Something occurred, or they wanted to do a capital project, or they wanted to use the money.
Or if the school budget goes
Or
up.
the school budget went up, but if you, when you're up against that 4% levy, it's hard to go to what the tax residents of the taxpayers and go, we're at the 4%. Let's use some of the fund balance. It may not be the policy that we wanted and it brought it down under the 15%.
Well, right now, Laura, when you look at the people that are involved right now.
I'm not arguing, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying.
no,
what
no, no, I
why.
know. We have a lot of good people that are not gonna go away. They're gonna be fiscal watchdogs and make sure that everybody is taken care of. Not just one body, but everybody. So with that being said, I am not concerned, all right, about dealing with outrageous school budgets, because for the first time in decades, we have a 6-6 split, which is big. Because let me tell you again, I'm not sound like a broken record, but if it wasn't for that 6-6 split, and some of the council, I am.
Please.
I
Point
am,
of, I'll call point of order.
It-
You ran me off. This is not to do with.
It has to do with our budget, because
Please.
we pay 78 cents on every dollar, all right, that we collect those. So it has everything to do with the school. You even mentioned that yourself.
Let's get back to the fund balance.
Thank you. So that's all I was going to say. That is a lot of times of how that fund balance may have gotten below last year.
So my question was, why do we have a 15% fund balance? Why don't we just make it 5 and everybody can get money back? I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant, but where did that number, that 15% come from?
The fund balance policy.
And that was created by the town council.
Council.
Was
If I-
led by a financial doctor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you also say it was recommended by an association?
So the
Or-
Government Finance
Yeah.
Officers Association.
Right.
Does recommend 2 months worth of,
Mhm.
you keep 2 months in reserve,
And that's 15%.
16 point.
Oh, so we're actually going below that.
But that's not your policy.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's why I said, we can talk about the policy later.
Hmm.
You know, we are having discussion about it.
Yeah.
Sandy Chardia. I just want to interject as a taxpayer. I think what you guys are doing is great for the town, okay? As a taxpayer coming up against the municipal budget, I would be in favor of what you're doing, decreasing the fund balance from 15.04 down to 14%. I would see that as a progress in the correct direction. If you rush this, you know, going from 10 to 14 down to 10, I mean, we can't foresee what the future is going to bring. If not everyone's comfortable with it, I really think it should, you know, I think it is 2 separate issues, but as a taxpayer, I think you're extending the olive branch to the taxpayers that will say, look, you know, they're doing everything it possibly can. We did this, we're going to look at it again. And I really think that you're just kind of spinning in circles.
Thank you. We originally discussed the last meeting, it was at 16.2 something %. And we dropped it down to 15.04 because we wanted to
Want to do the right thing.
do the right thing by the taxpayer, but also do the right thing by our budget.
So what we did is that the percentage is still at the 15, it's still within the policy, but the dollar amount we use to put into our operating budget so that there would be no tax increase
Right.
in the upcoming budget year. That's so that we're not asking for any additional tax revenue dollars from the residents this year
Right.
than we collected this year, next year. That's
I'm
what
just
the two-
concerned
that's-
about-
That's where the balance came
I'm
in.
concerned about breaking our policy, or, you know, or changing it without deep analysis.
Right, and actually, what is in the budget currently is within policy. That's why I'm also stating that, you know, we're within policy, you took the money other than you're using it for something that is not a one-time expenditure.
Right.
So let's put this discussion
we'll bring this discussion up again and maybe pair it with a plan that has to do with this other pot. They may work together very well.
Okay. Okay, so we got, what do we have next?
We have a motion on the floor.
So she's pulled that
Withdraw
motion.
my motion.
I withdraw my second.
Okay,
All right, number 9, I think.
number
Next.
9.
So one of the recommendations of the EDC when they did their presentation was that we have a liaison from the town council to work closely with EDC so that they can, that can report back to us at every session, every meeting. So I want us to choose a liaison from this town council. And I would recommend Mike, because he's the most experienced business person on the council.
My concern is that everyone on the council should know what's going on with EDC.
Yes,
Everyone should know what's going on.
how would we know?
I can, I have a few thoughts on that too.
Okay.
So you want them to come back monthly. The EDC itself only meets monthly. They post their agendas and they post their minutes. So that is one way to find out. Also, one of the main goals or objectives, broken down into things that have already been mentioned with Vice President Mazzini said, was that their job is to be a advisory board to us. Their job is to present us something and say, hey, this is what we want. So that's their opportunity to talk to us when they're ready with an idea or something, all of us together as a whole. So I don't think sending one of us back is necessarily necessary, just because they still have to bring that idea to us as a whole, so we as a whole can decide. But it is an open meeting and you can attend. I did attend a meeting as I was making my rounds to every board and commission after being elected, and I spoke with a member about that, and he brought his concerns of why he wants the liaison. And the reason was because sometimes they came up with ideas and they worked on something for a while just for the town council to shoot it down. As a volunteer, that must have been awful, but at the same time, a way around that, after, you know, the meeting I thought about this, they can come to us with an idea and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and it might, you know, take a lot of time. Should we invest our time in this preemptively? So my thought is that we don't really need somebody to monitor their progress, and that we can check the open meeting page on the Secretary of State's website and then us as they're supposed to.
So I don't think of us as monitoring them. And I also, I really don't have the time to go to their meetings or go online and be watching it.
Okay, because I just want to throw something out there now, and I'm just listening, and the EDC meets once a month. What day?
Usually Mondays.
Oh, first Monday of the month, last Monday of the month?
They met kind of sporadically throughout the last.
What I'm gonna suggest is that once a month, a representative from the EDC come to us and tell us what's going on.
Even that, I feel like they can do as needed. If they have something to report to us, great.
Well, I don't want it as needed because
Because it
Where-
never gets done.
everybody has said is the job of the town council to get economic development to happen. There is no paid person on the town who has that job. So I'm trying to get as much economic development conversation or discussion here, so we get action.
But we have to fast track some of these things too. As Councilor Husseini mentioned about, you know, the time frame that some businesses take to actually open up and come to fruition. There are some businesses that will be quicker than others to come to fruition, where the doors will be open much quicker. And again, you know, the EDC with, you know, somebody that they work with will actually, you know what I mean, help to facilitate through, you know, the planning process and whatnot, and get some of these businesses opened up fast track.
So they can still come to town council and give us their update of what's.
What's wrong with putting them on, like
every-
Karen gives her report, Laura gives her report,
Well, I
the
just-
EDC.
Gives his
Usually
report.
that's what I had asked for.
So we put it out there and ask them every month that they come to town council and give us a report.
Because that was originally back in January. I requested a report from the EDC because I had never heard it, ever. As long as I've been on the town council. To my recollection, the EDC has never come to the town council and said anything.
Nor
Told us-
me.
told us-
And I've been here 7 years.
Right.
So
So my hope is that we can have someone come to one meeting a month and give us an update.
Or even if time is an issue or they want to come with something together, they can write it. We got the clerk's report. You know, this is what we did this month or.
I'd like to have a person come and say, hey, this is
Right.
what's going on. You,
Did make a recommendation that we would make a report quarterly. That was one of the, I believe, one of the action items in our report. And I'm
Right.
just gonna give an overall observation that I think, I'm really disappointed that we didn't advance the economic development conversation further tonight. And obviously, it's really obvious to me who are the economic development proponents in this town. And that would be obviously Councilwoman Sheehan and Councilman Colasanti. I'm disappointed in Mark, Rich and Samantha, and that we're not prioritizing this a little bit more. You take offense to it, Rich.
The reason we pushed it off is because we were waiting for an answer regarding whether or not we can spend the ARPA money. We didn't make any.
It's obvious to anybody sitting here who are the economic development champions
Because
or not.
okay. I'm not gonna say that I'm disappointed and I'm not gonna say that I'm offended.
let's just say nothing and move on
Yeah.
with
I
this
will,
discussion.
because I think that my statement at the very beginning was very, right to the point. There's no need to lob a bomb up here at us because you have no idea
Rich,
what I'm
please.
for.
Had people crying up here earlier in the meeting that they are desperate for tax relief.
Everybody has a situation. I have my own situation, and as does everybody else. Has nothing to do with economic development. I'm loving to have a business, a new business, any new business come here to this town, and they have ample supply of people who are willing and able to guide them. Never have I ever said that I'm not for
But
economic development.
we're way
And I'm
off,
really
we're way off.
really bothered
We're
that
way
you
off
constantly
topic.
put words in my mouth.
The
It dulls
EDC
me.
has agreed to send a quarterly report to us, so that sounds
I
great.
would, I would like to request that the EDC comes once a month after their meeting and informs us of what's going on.
Second.
Aye.
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 Hi.
But just to let you know, any council person can go to EDC meetings. I will be there at every meeting to help facilitate things with my experience and whatnot.
I think that's great. I wish I had the time personally. I don't. But I really think what the EDC has proposed and the newly reinvigorated and passionate people that are on it. I want to hear every month what's going on. How can we help?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are there any other town council liaisons to other boards and
I
commissions?
don't think so.
We don't have any. Sometimes the boards and commissions have them between each other. The planning board has one there. I was a kind of liaison to two committees and commissions before. So, I mean, it happens. It's just not from council perspective, but planning board does it.
Well, I would like an answer to that question definitively, so.
We don't have any.
As far as I know, there were no liaisons to any group back a long time ago in 2016, not 19.
You know, we had liaisons back
Okay.
21 years ago,
But
all right, we all trusted one another. We weren't up on like, who knows something somebody else doesn't know, or trying to influence a board or a commission.
No,
Those accusations.
Why not? I'm just saying.
But what I'm saying is I was the liaison to the elderly affairs back in 2016, and then they took that position, kind of went away.
I just received a message from Mr. Reddish from the Economic Development Commission, and he said, Louise, please object to us coming to a monthly meeting.
Thank you. I agree. I think monthly when they meet and then they have to report and then meet and report, it's excessive. That's why I'm really looking forward to the quarterly report.
We'll make it quarterly.
Well, they already said they were.
But
gonna
our
do
point was
The
is that
vote's
we
already
wanted
made.
a town council member to be appointed to our.
So I'll
We
be
have
there.
one who's
Thank
who's
you.
volunteering his time.
Iva Lipton. I'm a resident of the state of 60 years. I forget what I was gonna say. That's the second time I've done that here.
I'm
I think
sorry.
you and Richie hanging around with one another.
Yeah. But I think maybe rather than have someone from them come to you, maybe you should assign somebody from the council to go to their meetings.
That was what was.
That was our
that was what was
recommendation.
recommended-
It was our recommendation.
Recommended.
I'm volunteering my time. I'm volunteering my time. I'll be there. I'll be there.
So I'd like to throw out there, maybe we should have a motion to reconsider that prior
Yeah,
motion.
okay, I make a motion to reconsider the monthly reports and rephrase it to go back to the quarterly reports that were offered.
I'll amend my second.
All those in favor?
Wait, before you, just for clarification.
I'm sorry.
To prevent the EDC thing, the agenda when they come, is it just gonna be one member? Because when you have a forum, you generate posting on there. So,
Right.
you're gonna direct just one member to come up or the entire commission?
Maybe a member.
I would love it if the leader of it would come or the the assistant, the
The chair.
vice chair.
Whoever
I'm-
could give
I
us
was
the information we
struggling
need.
with that. Right,
Mhm.
but I prefer the chairman or the vice chairman to give a quarterly report. That's what I would prefer, and it would be great.
So did we have a vote on having a liaison? Did we have a
No,
vote
we
on
do have a
that?
motion.
We didn't have a second.
I seconded it.
Did you say there is a motion on the floor? What
Yep.
motion is it?
The quarterly,
Withdraw the the monthly request.
right, and to change it back to quarterly
I amended
Yes.
my second.
as requested by Joe Red.
Okay,
Aye.
okay, so I make a motion again that we send a liaison from the town council to the economic development meetings, so that he can report back to us at every town council meeting, and then they could come quarterly in person.
I'll, I don't know if it needs a motion, but I'll donate my time.
Can we have a second or no?
I didn't hear a second.
Second.
The roll call is.
No roll call.
Aye.
Nay.
No.
No.
I'll be there to donate my time.
Thank you.
I'll be there.
We know who the economic development components are, who aren't.
So the hard thing is, we say we support it, that's what they asked for when they came, give their talk.
It's not an individual, I'm not into having liaisons to different groups. I just don't think it's a good idea.
They thought it would help them. I'd like to give them whatever would help them.
No big deal. I'll be
Okay.
there.
All right, let's move on.
We're not gonna split
Number
hairs.
10.
Number 10, request Councilor Sheehan for discussion and consideration of moratorium on new hires, any new spending that has not already been budgeted for 1 year until income or from a new business is able to cover the cost of the new hire.
We know that the cost of employees is the biggest expense that we have. I mean, the roads, yeah, 2.5 million, but we're paying employees, not just their pay, but it's their health insurance, taxes we pay, the workers' comp, all those things. And so I would like us to not add to that expense.
So what happens if an employee leaves?
You're just replacing the person. She's talking about new hires.
It says new spending that has not already been budgeted. My thought on this is that we are the hiring and firing body. So I would like to leave that discretion to us, that we have the power to make that decision if we feel like it's going to benefit our town employees. because we don't want to leave them stranded or leave them in a situation where they really need something. So that's my.
We,
Karen, you were gonna say something?
I think it was.
so that's good that we concur that under the town charter that the town council is the hire and fire body. That's wonderful. I love it.
All right, so let's go to number
making
11.
salad.
No. I'm concurring with you.
So we learned, I was talking with Gordon. what's his name?
Rogers.
Gordon Rogers. I never can
Gordon
remember his
Rogers.
last name. He's a great guy.
He is.
And he was saying that there's $338,000 available in Governor McKee's budget for Richmond that we can use for roads. We have to put 2 for 1, so that we have to put up $676,000 in order to get $338,000 from the state. So I'm asking that we apply for it, for that money, and that we deduct that $338,000 from the 2.5 million that we were borrowing for road work.
I have a question. Do we have to apply? Because I believe that's a proposal that's going into the state budget, which they're gonna go down in June. But I don't know if we have to apply or just. we
Yes,
get
we
it.
do.
We
It's-
do?
It's a $20 million item that they have allocated for road work. And it depends on the town whether or not you want to apply for it or not. It's a 2 for 1. So basically, I agree with Council Sheen. We had discussed this. And, you know, it just makes sense for the town that we can get the 378,000. We already have the 2.5 million allocated for road work. So that 328,000 that we're going to get from the state when we apply for it, instead of being $2.5 million, it will be 2.22 million that we'll actually use from that money. So we'll be able to save $328,000.
Could we do some research on this? Are you-
Well, there's a couple of things is, let us maybe not vote on it tonight. The governor's budget hasn't been approved, so we don't know if it'll still stay in the budget.
Yep.
The other side of it is, we will always apply. Nothing's to say, we will have to come back to the council before we actually go out for approval for bonds. I'm waiting for the governor's budget to be approved on that as well, for the timing and, because we do have an application in for roads into, I have a grant application in for, DOT for $1 million towards the roads. Into their loan revolving fund. So we have other options and we can always leverage our bond money against and be able to actually come up with 3.1 if we can leverage 340,000 of our 2.5 to get another 600,000, then instead of putting 2.5 in the roads, we'll put 3.1 or whatever.
So,
Yeah.
so should we vote on, yeah, this sounds like a great idea, which would empower you to do some research?
No, I think we have to wait for the governor's budget to be approved to know that this money is available to us, and if we have to apply, we will definitely apply. But we can leverage the road bond money.
When I was on the phone with him the other night, it's definitely a done deal. So you will be getting notice.
Which
But
is,
our contention is decreasing the 2.5 million that we voted to go out to bond and use that 328,000.
you have to go back. This is a legal question. We have bond authorization from the voters for 2.5 for the roads. I believe that if we wanted to deauthorize it and make it a lesser amount, we actually have to go back to the voters to deauthorize it, or it's an unissued authorization. But that still states on our financial reports as unissued, but, you know, authorization. we don't have to go borrow $2.5 million is what I'm trying to say. We can go out and borrow 2.2 if we want. We can go out and borrow $1 million if we want. If we choose, we have the 2.5 in the budget. That is the high end. Here we go to fund balance again. If we don't borrow 2.5, that line item won't be expended 100%. Those funds would then fall to fund balance.
We wanted to make the town aware of what
Of
was coming.
additional monies. Thank you.
Exactly.
We would be more than happy to
I think it's a
apply
great
when
idea.
it.
I want us to not be in debt as much as possible.
We have very low debt.
Well, okay.
That's a good thing.
I have another question. I'm looking at the yearly expense, debt expense for next year in the budget. It's going up like 300 something thousand dollars. So there is a loan that we took out in 2014, it's being paid off in 2024. So
So in 25, you won't have that debt service.
so it's all of 24 then.
I have, the debt service that's in there is, what's my schedule? I'm not sure if there's an extra interest payment in 25.
Okay, I was thinking if it's paid off in January, and February, so we have to have the whole year, then we wouldn't have to have that high.
Oh, no, that debt service is what we owe next year, other than the $2.5 million. I didn't put anything, I didn't put like a full year of debt service for the 14 bond if I didn't need it.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to let you know, when I went to DC, I'll be going again. Made good connections with Congressman Seth Magaziner and talking one-on-one with Senator Reed, trying to get some more monies for the town. So that's always a good thing. So we're in discussion on what we can do on various things. That's always a good thing, to let you know.
Thank you.
Communication.
Motion to file.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion to enter executive session. I think. No, we skipped it because it got moved on.
Oh,
Because it's related to our vote.
So I second the motion to move to
I know we
executive
did it
session.
all, but Somebody else wants.
Those in favor?
You have to read it by law, discussion of filing petition for right of.
Aye.
Said in Supreme Court to appeal Supreme Court decision. ED Richmond Beaver River LLC zoning board of review pursuant to Rhode Island general laws 42-46-5A2 litigation.
Second.
Can I ask, still in open session, why are we going into executive session over this? We lost the case, that's public information, and has nothing to do, it's not town lands or anything like that.
Because we would be discussing, our, strategy for the appeal and the likelihood of success.
But again, it's not town lands or anything that we're dealing
That
with.
wouldn't necessarily determine whether it's an executive session. I think that's a different section of the Open Meetings Act. This is pending litigation.
Takes roll call for each member and we're going into that.
From a different week.
I think we already voted and we,
We saw a motion, second.
oh, okay.
And they got it.
I don't know what the
Going to
question
executive
is, but I'll say.
Do you want to
aye.
come in
Going
turn
to-
in
need
executive
to go to
session?
executive session.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say yes.
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 Did you unplug my computer from?
I don't know who this was.
Mine is the black one. Okay, thank you. Oh.
If we file this on their behalf,
We're not filing it on their behalf, we're filing it on behalf of the zoning town.
Zoning board. Okay. Well,
So,
That's.
motion to go back in open session, now we can do all that?
Go ahead.
You're in open session.
Okay, motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
No,
You don't want to seal the minutes?
well, I mean.
I'll change mine to no too.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We didn't discuss it.
Can you redo the minutes, and the roll call vote? I didn't get everybody's. Sorry.
Nay for Helen.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so the minutes of the executive session are not sealed. Okay.
So now you want somebody to make a motion to authorize the solicitor to file a petition for certiorari.
I make
No.
motion to do said file.
Second.
All those in favor, or do we need to discuss?
Yes, you do, you
Okay,
do.
let's discuss it.
You
So,
already did, but
Yeah,
go
we
ahead and
did.
do it again.
Well,
Did you have a
I
question,
read the
Mike?
report of that came back, the whole legal brief thing. And it looks to me as if that the people who wanted to put the solar panels there jumped through 100 hoops to try to get things done. So I say no.
And I've spoken to Mr. Pexino, and he believes that the attorney that he has spoken with is willing to put up 101 loops. So I'm voting for us to go forward. My discussion.
I voted to go forward, you voted to go forward, you both voted not to go forward.
Yes, go forward.
Okay. So it's minimal, right? It's a minimal,
This, at this stage, yes.
right?
This stage. Thank
If
you.
you just, if they grant the petition for certiorari, you don't have to proceed with it. You can decide that you don't want to. If they grant the petition, you are gonna be the first to know. At that point, if you want to, you can vote to not proceed with the appeal.
So the reason that I was for doing something about this is going into a section of the town that has a specific character of this town and altering it permanently, to me is horrible. It's like clear cutting the guy who bought the lot across the street from me and clear cut it.
Well, there's already land is already cleared.
It's a historic district.
Well, then, you know what I mean, again, there was always, well, I won't say it was always that option, but. A man of John's wealth, he could have very well easily afforded to buy that land.
Except
could've-
that Bill Stamp wouldn't sell it to anyone. Land trust tried to buy
I
it.
spoke with Bill Stamp 6 years ago and he wasn't gonna sell it to anyone.
There's ways around that, obviously he wanted to sell it, all right, because he did sell it, somebody could have set up an
No, he didn't.
LLC and
He's
bought it.
missing.
This is.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Second. All right, in favor of adjourning, aye, aye, aye.